Chapter 1486. Yichen laughed maniacally. Not bad. This blockhead has some strength. Let's see if he can take another hit from me. At this time, Lava Dragon King had already pounced on Black Shark's back. Its sharp claws clawed at Black Shark's huge body, sending scales flying. The Lava Dragon King's claw tore off at least several hundred kilograms of flesh from the Black Shark's back, leaving a huge bloody hole. Dragon blood spurted out from the sky and fell to the ground. After the scorching hot dragon blood fell on the ground, it immediately corroded the rocks and emitted bursts of pungent smoke. It hurts. You two damn bastards. You should be hacked into pieces. Black Shark howled crazily. His eyes were bloodshot, and his aura was at its peak. Unfortunately, Black Shark's craziness had no effect on Yichen and Lava Dragon King. With a shrill whistle, Yichen's Rui Jingu Bang came crashing down again. Yichen did not use any other means to deal with Black Shark. He just waved his Rui Jingu Bang and used his immense strength to fight Black Shark head-on. Lava Dragon King also took the opportunity to launch sneak attacks. From time to time, he clawed huge bloody holes on Black Shark's body. In less than 15 minutes, Black Shark's body was riddled with holes. His four claws were trembling violently, and a trace of fear flashed in his eyes. The strength of this human before him was way too strong. Not only was his strength greater than his speed was even faster as well. Coupled with the despicable Lava Dragon King's shameless sneak attacks, he had lost more than 10,000 kilograms of flesh in a short time. Lava Dragon King wiped the blood from his mouth and stared at Black Shark with a hideous grin. Your flesh tastes good. It's a pity that it's a little hard, but I don't mind. It's even better if it's hard. It's more chewy. I must eat you today. He Sha looked at Yi Chun, then at the Lava Dragon King. Suddenly, he turned around and fled without saying a word. Although he was reckless, he was not a fool. It was already difficult for him to deal with one of these two people. If the two of them worked together, he could only passively take a beating. Unfortunately, he could not escape even if he wanted to. Yi Chun was much faster than him. Just as he turned around, Yi Chun had already appeared in front of him. The Rui Jingu Bang, which had grown to several thousand feet long, smashed down. Black Shark let out an earth-shattering scream. He felt his head buzzing, as if 10,000 thunderbolts were buried in his body. He could no longer control his body and fell from the sky with a loud bang. When he hit the ground, the earth shook. Countless trees were completely crushed into pieces by the Lava Dragon King's body. The Black Shark's body twisted, and suddenly the sky collapsed and the earth cracked, and huge rocks swirled in the air. Countless millstone-sized rocks flew towards Yi Chun and the Lava Dragon King with shrill whistling sounds. Yi Chun's forward speed suddenly stopped for half a second. The Rui Jingu Bang danced like a whirlwind, and the rocks that smashed towards him were all stirred up and turned into dust. Relying on the rain of boulders, Black Shark managed to buy himself some time to escape. Black Shark was in an extremely sorry state. Although he used a secret technique to stop the blood from flowing out of his body, he was still extremely weak. He did not hesitate to overdraw his life force to increase his speed to the extreme. In an instant, he broke through the void and fled madly. Lava Dragon King also rushed over at this time. He watched Black Shark escape into the void and disappear. He anxiously turned to Yi Chun and asked, "Master, what should we do?" Yi Chun scanned his surroundings. When he saw the bloodstains, he revealed a cold smile. He waved his hand, and a fist-sized ball of golden blood floated in front of him. Yi Chun said coldly, "With this ball of essence blood as a guide, I can find him even if he escapes to the ends of the earth. Follow me." After saying that, Yi Chun stretched out his hand and immediately cut open the void. He jumped in with the Lava Dragon King and disappeared. The other Black Shark escaped from the void in a sorry state. He struggled to maintain his balance. As he flew forward, he would occasionally turn his head and look into the distance in horror. He kept muttering in his heart, "Got rid of them, right? They should have gotten rid of them, right? Those two damn bastards are too terrifying. They almost killed me. I have to report this to the king. Although I almost died, I should be the first to get the accurate news." At this time, he was less than 100,000 miles away from the Red Sea King's palace. However, Black Shark's energy was not enough to support him to continue traversing the void. He could only fly slowly. He still had a sliver of hope in his heart. When he was traversing the void, he had erased all his aura. He should have gotten rid of the two assassins. But at this time, Black Shark suddenly felt that something was wrong. His body suddenly became very stiff. It was as if he was being stared at by a terrifying giant beast. A drop of cold sweat rolled down from the corner of Black Shark's eye. He didn't dare to move at all. After a long time, he slowly raised his huge head and looked at the sky. What he saw scared him out of his wits. He saw that Yi Chun was already there, waiting for him. Yi Chun hugged the Rui Jingubang and stepped on the Lava Dragon King. He was looking at him with interest. Seeing Black Shark raise his head, Yi Chun smiled and said, "You haven't said goodbye to me. Where do you want to go?" Black Shark's heart was trembling. He squeezed out a smile and said to Yi Chun, "Honorable Lord, we have no grudges between us. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone that I've seen you. Let's part ways here." After saying that, Black Shark carefully tried to pass by Yi Chun and the Lava Dragon King. Unfortunately, as soon as he moved, Yi Chun immediately stood in front of him and blocked him. Black Shark did not dare to be presumptuous. He turned in another direction, but Yi Chun blocked him again. Black Shark's ferocious face finally trembled. There was a sliver of blood in his eyes. He gritted his teeth and said, "Don't go too far. Do you have to force a life and death struggle? Now, take a look at my next move." Just as Black Shark raised his head and wanted to fight Yi Chun and the Lava Dragon King to the point of mutual destruction, his vision suddenly turned black. Then, to his horror, he saw an incomparably huge round pillar crashing down. Black Shark felt a sharp pain in his head. His vision turned black and he lost consciousness. On the ground, the Lava Dragon King and Yi Chun stood at the edge of a huge pit. They looked at the huge fire dragon that was over 10,000 zhong in size. It was even bigger than the Lava Dragon King. Chapter 1487. Lava Dragon King showed a happy smile and said, "Haha, Master is really powerful. As long as Master makes a move, this idiot will definitely not be able to escape. Then I won't be polite." Lava Dragon King opened its bloody mouth and was about to pounce and devour the Black Shark. Unfortunately, as soon as it moved, it felt that it was being stepped on. Yi Chun stared at it coldly and said, "Did you ask for my permission? Who allowed you to eat her?" Lava Dragon King was stunned for a moment and said with some confusion, "Master, but didn't we always do this before? If we don't eat her, wouldn't it be a waste? If I eat her, I can increase my strength, right?" Yi Chun snorted and ignored it. He directly took out the contract book from the interspatial ring. As soon as it saw the familiar contract book, Lava Dragon King immediately understood Yi Chun's plan and immediately became vigilant. When Yi Chun only had it as his mount, it received countless benefits. From the initial resistance to the final loyalty, Lava Dragon King was really like a fish in water beside Yi Chun. But now Yi Chun actually took a fancy to this stupid fire dragon. Obviously, he also wanted to take it as his mount. How could it accept this? Lava Dragon King rolled its eyes and immediately ran to Yi Chun with a charming smile on its face. It kept wagging its tail and said tentatively, "Master, are you going to take this big fool as your mount? I don't want to criticize this big fool, but he is simply a rude and reckless idiot. If he follows Master, he will only be a failure." He actually made Master angry. In fact, I can do what he can do, and I can do what he can't do. "Master, why are you looking for something far away?" Of course, Yi Chun knew what Lava Dragon King was thinking, but he was too lazy to explain. He directly kicked it away. Immediately after, Yi Chun chanted an incantation. The light of the contract book instantly enveloped the Black Shark's massive body. Without any resistance, the Black Shark became Yi Chun's pet. Seeing that the contract book had been branded with He Sha's spirit, Yi Chun nodded with satisfaction. This was another super follower at the level of Daluo Jingxian. Yi Chun looked at He Sha's battered body and frowned. He took out 1,000,000 spiritual fire crystals from his pocket world and threw them beside Heisha. Then he kicked Heisha's head and said coldly, "Get up." Black Shark shook his head and woke up from his coma. When he saw Yi Chun standing in front of him, he immediately knelt down and said respectfully, "Black Shark has offended you before greeting master. I hope director can forgive me." Black Shark's previous memories were still there, but now he was filled with worship for the man in front of him from the bottom of his heart. Black Shark felt that he had to follow Yi Chun wholeheartedly. This was the greatest meaning in life. Yi Chun waved his hand indifferently and said, "Okay, get up. You will work for me from now on. Now eat those spiritual fire crystals and quickly recover your strength. But it's better not to repair your appearance. This seriously injured appearance is very attractive." Heisha turned his head and saw the pile of top-quality fire spirit crystals beside him. He immediately cheered and swallowed the 1,000,000 fire spirit crystals. Suddenly, a scorching energy exploded in his body and quickly repaired the damage he had suffered. However, he remembered Yi Chun's words. None of the ragged wounds on his body were repaired. From the outside, he looked like he was on the verge of death. Lava Dragon King stood behind Yi Chun and looked at him. He felt a little jealous. Originally, all of this belonged to him, but now there was one more to share. Heisha was indeed gifted. In just the time it took for an incense stick to burn, his terrifying injuries had already healed by more than 90%. Only the surface of his body was still bleeding. Black Shark came forward, knelt on one knee, and said in a deep voice, "Master, Black Shark is here to report. If you need anything, please let me know immediately." Yi Chun said indifferently, "Tell me all the information you know, no matter how big or small." Black Shark was stunned at first. Then he immediately described the situation nearby, including the fact that the Daluo Jinxian level experts under the Red Sea King had gone to look for the invaders. After hearing this, Yi Chun knew what to do. He waved to this guy and said, "In that case, go back to the Red Sea King and wait for my orders." Black Shark immediately scratched his head and said, "But what should I say when I go back? Walk ahead of me. You have to remember everything I've said. Don't let anything slip." After that, Yi Chun asked Black Shark to repeat it 3 times. After confirming that there was no mistake, he let him leave. At this time, on the other side, the dozen or so Daluo Jinxian level experts under the Red Sea King had fallen into a chaotic battle. The wind whistled, and the energy was amazing. The land and mountains within a radius of hundreds of miles had all collapsed and disappeared. These dozen or so Daluo Jinxian level experts were panting at this time. Although they had killed a dozen or so of them, it didn't help at all. More hell mantises were coming at them dauntlessly. And these dozen or so Daluo Jinxian level fire dragons had lost millions of kilograms of flesh and blood essence this time. After devouring the flesh and blood essence, these hell mantises had obviously become bigger. The Scar Dark Cyan Fire Dragon finally killed a way out. He suddenly roared, "We can't stay here for long. We have to go back and report this to the Lord. The Lord will make the decision." After saying that, his body trembled violently at a high frequency. Then, after shaking off all the flowing on his body, he broke through the void and disappeared. His departure was the beginning of a total defeat. The other fire dragons roared and threw themselves into the void crack. The commotion here had already alarmed the middle-sized fire dragon tribe in the distance. After the thunder and lightning dissipated, more than 300 tribal warriors walked over tentatively. When they saw the mess around them, they were so shocked that their mouths were wide open. It was really unbelievable. One of the warriors asked coldly, "Lord Patriarch, what happened? How could there be such a terrible thing?" The patriarch of the tribe said with a serious face, "It was a group of extremely terrifying experts. I don't know why they fought. Fortunately, they left. Otherwise, we would have been injured. They left, but we haven't." Jianwei appeared with the black iron halberds and a hideous smile on his face. Chapter 1488. Who are you? The tribe leader was shocked. He quickly turned around and stared at Jianwei. Jianwei shook his body and turned into a dark man who was more than 100 feet tall. He walked over step by step with the black iron halberds in his hands. There seemed to be a thin scholar standing in the clouds not far behind Yenwei. The tribe leader immediately breathed a sigh of relief. He stuck out his scarlet tongue and licked the corner of his mouth, saying, "You scared me. So it's just you two ants?" The other fire dragon warriors of the tribe burst into laughter too. They looked at Dianwei and Guofengxiao, who was far above the clouds, in mockery. In their eyes, although Dianwei was not small, he was nothing compared to them. The tribe leader shook his body and turned into a huge fire dragon about 10,000 feet long. He said coldly, "You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Come and eat me." But hardly had he finished his sentence when his face changed abruptly. Not far behind Yenwei and Guofengxiang, an infinite number of tough, elite soldiers had appeared. These elite soldiers locked their eyes on them. The rumbling footsteps seemed to shake the earth and the mountains. 1,000,000 soldiers of the Samsara Legion surged up behind Dianwei like a tide. They moved faster and faster. In every breath, they could cross thousands of meters of space. After being in the Nether Devil world for so long, these warriors of the Samsara dynasty had gotten used to killing these indigenous fire dragons. They knew which part was the most suitable for cutting and which part had the weakest defense. They even peeled off a lot of the fire dragon's fur and prepared to go back and make a set of leather armor for themselves. With more than 10,000 soldiers, the momentum of the charge of 1,000,000 Samsara Legion warriors was extremely shocking. In addition, these warriors of the Samsara dynasty had fought countless races to the death. Each of them was full of killing intent. Each of them had taken the lives of at least tens of thousands of living beings. After years of slaughter, each of them possessed a terrifying, murderous aura. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that each of these warriors had been walking back and forth on the edge of death all day long. They had all walked step by step through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. The Samsara warriors gathered together. The killing intent on their bodies gradually gathered above their heads. The lethality was extremely shocking. Their familiarity with the white tiger killing formation had already reached a state where they could control it freely. In other words, as long as they stood together, they only needed to think about it, and the powerful white tiger killing formation would be activated. In the sky above the Samsara Legion, the murderous aura that filled the sky suddenly condensed into a huge white tiger that was tens of thousands of feet long. This white tiger had a ferocious body, and its enormous head alone was several hundred feet in size. Clouds follow the dragon, and tigers follow the wind. Even if the white tiger killing array did not form a real white tiger. However, a violent gust of wind blew out of nowhere, and a huge tornado was suddenly born, sweeping wildly in all directions. Countless ordinary creatures of the underworld were blown up into the sky by the tornadoes. As for the gigantic white tiger, it was already lunging over with its mouth wide open. Crack! The head of the tribe, who had long been stunned and panicked, had his neck bitten off by the white tiger. The warriors of the Fire Dragon clan and the tribe were already stunned. Their patriarch was a famous expert within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. Now, he didn't even have the chance to react before he was killed. Just as they were in a daze, the warriors of the Samsara Legion had already rushed over with a frenzied, murderous aura. The lethality of these 1,000,000 Samsara Legion warriors was no less than that of the Nether Mantises. Moreover, the cooperation between the warriors of the Samsara Legion was even better. There was no need for words at all. They could understand the intentions of the other party with just a glance or a movement. When hundreds of elite warriors surrounded a fire dragon, it was destined to perish. The armor on these warriors and the weapons in their hands are the best of the best. Those who were qualified to go to the underworld were naturally the best of the best in the Samsara Legion. They were equipped with immortal-level equipment and a god-level weapon. They left wounds so deep that bones could be seen on the fire dragon's body. Some of the more skilled warriors even skinned the fire dragon in the process. The scene was quite cruel, and it made the fire dragons tremble in fear. Boom! With a loud noise, Dianwei had already taken the lead, and the weapon in his hand had already smashed the door in front of him. Hundreds of thousands of elite warriors had already filed in. No one made any unnecessary noise, and they were just killing in a cold and efficient manner. They did not let go of any corner. The fire dragons, regardless of whether they were male or female, old or young, were all slaughtered. The battle only lasted for the time it took for 2 incense sticks to burn before it was all over. The nether mantises came out to clean up the mess and devoured all the bones. After cleaning up the battlefield, Guofeng Xiao and Jian Wei led the Samsara Legion into the darkness and disappeared. Yichun had quietly followed He Sha into the palace of the Red Sea King. The Lava Dragon King had a unique technique that could hide Yi Chen's aura. Yichun also cast the illusion technique and directly turned into the size of a matchbox, hiding in He Sha's ear. He Sha rushed back to the Red Sea King ahead of the Black Cyan Fire Dragon and others. He Sha did not hide the injuries on his body and rushed in shouting all the way. "King, something bad has happened. You have to make a decision for me." By the time He Sha rushed into the palace, he was already sitting on the white bone throne in the palace. He frowned and stared at He Sha. Obviously, he knew He Sha's character the best among this group of subordinates. "Why are you in such a panic? What happened?" He Sha spat a mouthful of bloody phlegm on the smooth and clean obsidian floor, then gritted his teeth and scolded. "It's that shameless bastard next door with a bed on his head and feet full of pus. Your old friend, the Black Armored King." The Red Sea King suddenly frowned. "What's wrong with the Black Armored King? You still treat him as a friend. This shameless old thing betrayed you long ago. The problem of the tribes disappearing in our territory was caused by him behind the scenes. I was lucky enough to escape because I discovered the secret of the Black Armored King. The Black Armored King has mastered a mysterious black magic. He caused the most ordinary nether mantises in our nether realm to mutate and control them. The Black Armored King now wants to unify the entire nether realm, and the first person he wants to eliminate is you, his old friend." Chapter 1489. What? The Black-Armed King can actually mutate the Hell Mantis. What's going on? Hurry up and tell me in detail. The Red Sea King had already somewhat believed He Sha's words and kept asking. Yichun hid in He Sha's ear and taught him how to deal with it. He Sha had been with the Red Sea King for hundreds of years and had always been loyal, so the Red Sea King did not doubt him at all. He did not know that He Sha had been subdued by Yichun. Just as He Sha was adding oil to the fire to sow discord between the Red Sea King and the Black-Armed King next door. The Black Gold Fire Dragon had already run back with his companions in a sorry state. Their injuries seemed to be much worse than He Sha's. Not only were they dripping with blood, but they were also vomiting blood. Even more than half of the scales on their bodies were torn off. The Red Sea King immediately frowned and asked coldly, "Chongpan, what's going on? What happened to you?" The Black Gold Fire Dragon, Chongpan, said with lingering fear, "King, this time we almost couldn't come back. Originally, we were following behind Black Shark, preparing to find out who the mastermind is, but we were accidentally ambushed by a group of Hell Mantis." Hearing this, the Red Sea King became vigilant and said with a gloomy face, "Hell Mantis? What's going on?" "We don't know what's going on with those damn Hell Mantis. They're not the kind we are familiar with at all. They have all mutated. Any one of them is more than 5,000 feet long, and their bodies are as hard as diamond. And their attacks are crazy and don't care about their lives. What's more, these bastards can even hide themselves. Even I didn't notice them approaching us." After hearing this, the Red Sea King sat back on his white bone throne with a gloomy face. Now, he no longer had any doubts about what He Sha said. He Sha stood up again and pounded his strong chest with his fists. He roared loudly, "King, I think the black-armed old bastard will not give up on killing me. At worst, we will fight with them." The Black-Armed King was a cunning old fox. He waved his hand and said, "Seal this news for now. Don't spread it to the outside world to avoid panic. You guys quickly heal your wounds and gather the troops. Remember, after gathering the troops, patrol the entire territory. Also, secretly move closer to the Black-Armed King's territory. That old bastard dares to have designs on this king. I want to catch him off guard. Following the Red Sea King's orders, orders quickly spread throughout the territory. Every family sent their most elite soldiers to the Red Sea King's palace. It didn't take long for them to assemble an army of 1 million soldiers, patrolling the territory quickly and efficiently. Yichen left Black Shark at the Red Sea King's place to relay the news. He, on the other hand, returned to where Dianwei and Guofeng Xiao were without a sound. At this moment, the entire Red Sea King's territory was in a state of panic. It was no longer suitable for them to carry out a sneak attack to exterminate the tribe. Yichun spread out a huge map, pointed at it, and said to Dianwei and Guofeng Xiao, "We will march at high speed overnight. We will reach the Black-Armed King's territory tomorrow and catch them off guard." Dianwei and Guofeng Xiao immediately led all the Samsara Legion soldiers to march quickly, leaving the Red Sea King's territory as fast as lightning. They entered the Black-Armed King's territory overnight. The Samsara Legion was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, they let the Lava Dragon King transform into the Black Gold Dragon, which was Changpan's appearance. Late at night the next day, they brazenly launched a crazy attack on the Black-Armed King's territory. In fact, the Lava Dragon King was just a shadow on the surface. The real attackers were the Samsara Legion and the Nether Mantises. This time, they really went all out. In just one night, hundreds of tribes in the Black-Armed King's territory were exterminated and uprooted. Not a single one was left alive. Millions of fire dragons, young and old, all disappeared. They were not found alive, and their corpses were not found. Only the devastated ruins of the tribe were left. On the third day, the entire Black-Armed King's tribe was completely shocked. The Black-Armed King was furious and ordered a strict investigation of this matter. Someone reported to the Black-Armed King, "Your Majesty, a subordinate seemed to have heard a terrifying dragon roar that night. He vaguely saw a black and gold fire dragon with a body length of more than 10,000 meters hovering in the sky." The Black-Armed King frowned and said to himself, "More than 10,000 meters in size. That's the cultivation level of the Daluo Jinxian. But our Black-Armed King's tribe doesn't have a fire dragon of this color. Could it be an invasion?" At this moment, a short figure stood out and said, "Your Majesty, from the description of the appearance, I have some impression. More than 10 years ago, when I represented Your Majesty on a diplomatic mission to the Red Sea King's territory, it was the Black-Armed King's right-hand man, Changpan, who received me. His appearance was like this." The Black-Armed King shook his head and said, "Impossible. I have always been on good terms with the Red Sea King. How could he come to my territory and behave atrociously? This matter cannot be mentioned again. Continue the investigation. We must find this damned murderer within 3 days." Yes, since the Black-Armed King did not think that it was Changpan who did it, his subordinate could not say anything more and immediately went to investigate. It was a pity that this time, Yichen was personally supervising the battle. They did not leave behind any clues. Chapter 1490. In the small world, the immortal stones were piled up like mountains, and these soldiers could use them as they wished. In addition, after combing through the recent battles, everyone's cultivation had become more refined. Taking advantage of the break, Dianwei even designed a weapon that could kill the fiery dragons more efficiently with the help of some of the experts in the army. This weapon was specially designed to deal with these fire dragons, and it was similar to the famous dragon snaring lasso. Although it was a little difficult to deal with the fire dragons at the level of Daluo Jinxian, it was more than enough to deal with these ordinary ones. Boom! The night in the Nether Devil realm was more depressing, and the clouds seemed to be very low. In the black and red clouds, there were muffled sounds of thunder. The fire dragons in these tribes had long been used to it, and they all went into the caves to rest. In the sky above the tribe, there were 2 fire dragons patrolling listlessly. They yawned from time to time. At this moment, 2 black iron chains as thick as thighs suddenly appeared in the void. Like a poisonous snake, they instantly tied the two fire dragons up tightly and locked their necks tightly. The two fire dragons' faces suddenly turned red, and they opened their mouths wide, but no sound came out. Just as they looked in horror, a bright silver light flashed, and the huge dragon head was chopped off. Before their heads fell from the sky, a huge triangular head suddenly appeared in the void. It swallowed the dragon head in one gulp. Two nether mantises slowly appeared in the void and swallowed the two fire dragons in the blink of an eye. Yichen stood in the void, and Dianwei and Guofengxiao stood on his left and right. Seeing the silent and perfect sneak attack just now, Yichen frowned and said, "There's no need to be so cautious when dealing with a small tribe. What I want now is efficiency. Take down this tribe with the force of a thunderbolt. Tonight, we'll expand the results of the battle." Dianwei immediately said in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, I'll set off immediately." After saying that, Dianwei fell straight down from the clouds like a meteor. With a loud bang, he landed on the square in the center of the tribe. Instantly, with the point as the center, a huge spiderweb-shaped crack appeared on the ground, and it continued to spread in all directions. The surrounding soldiers of the Samsara Legion were like nimble swallows as they entered the tribe. They split into groups of 5 and 10 and quickly rushed into all the caves. "Who dares to cause trouble in our tribe?" "Ah!" Following a series of blood-curdling screams, the stench of blood filled the air above the entire tribe. Yichen watched from the sky. From start to finish, it took less than an incense stick's worth of time. Dianwei had already led the Samsara Legion to the next base without stopping. The ghost mantises had already devoured all the corpses in the tribe. All the valuable top-grade fire crystals were piled up in the square, like a small hill. With a wave of his sleeve, Yichun collected all the top-grade fire crystals into a small world. Then, Yichun turned around and kicked the Lava Dragon King's body. "It's your turn to work. What are you waiting for?" The Lava Dragon King immediately nodded obediently and said, "Yes, Master. Don't worry, I will complete the task perfectly." The Lava Dragon King soared into the sky and instantly transformed back into the appearance of the black gold fire dragon Chongpan. Since Yi Chun recruited Black Shark, the Lava Dragon King felt that he had encountered a huge crisis. He changed his lazy appearance from before, for fear that Yi Chun would be unhappy and replace him with Black Shark. Yi Chun didn't continue to follow him. He was quite satisfied with his subordinates. Once he encountered an unexpected situation, he could arrive in an instant with just a thought. Conservatively, Yi Chun felt that he could destroy more than 1,000 tribes tonight. However, compared to the huge Nether Devil world, the death of so many people was just a drop in the ocean. He had to make the whole Nether Devil world more chaotic. Of course, Yi Chun didn't forget the purpose of his trip, which was to improve the reproduction ability of the Dragon Tribe and the Phoenix Tribe. But so far, he had achieved nothing. In the mood, Yi Chun simply found a spacious cave and set up several defensive formations at the entrance. Then in the cave, he waved his hand and a pile of at least tens of millions of top-grade fire crystals appeared. With another wave of his hand, the enchanting and hot body of the Ancestor Phoenix appeared. In this dark Nether Devil world, perhaps the Ancestor Phoenix was the only thing Yi Chun could amuse himself with. Feeling the surging energy of the top-grade fire crystals, the Ancestor Phoenix's eyes suddenly lit up. Then she saw the naughty smile on Yi Chun's face and remembered what Yi Chun did to her last time. She suddenly blushed. Yi Chun reached out and lifted the Ancestor Phoenix's shy chin, saying to her, "You know what to do. This time, I want to try something new." Then he stood up and pressed the Ancestor Phoenix's little head with one hand, making her kneel on the ground. Then he stood in front of the Ancestor Phoenix and bowed his head, saying, "You may begin." That night, Yi Chun felt a different kind of feeling. The next day, when he came out of the cave in high spirits, Dianwei and Guofengxiao had been waiting outside with the 1,000,000 soldiers of the Samsara Legion for a long time. Yi Chun asked coldly, "How was the result of last night's battle?" Guofengxiao waved the feather fan in his hand, walked up and said with a smile, "Your Majesty, Last night was our most glorious night. We killed 1,200 of our clansmen and over 1 million fire dragons. It's worth mentioning that this is an area rich in mineral veins. We seized more than 1 billion top-grade fire crystals. After saying that, Guofengxiao handed 2 interspatial rings to Yichen with both hands. Yichen glanced at them and immediately saw the neatly arranged top-grade fire crystals inside the interspatial rings. They were simply piled up like a mountain. On the other side, Yichen waved his hand, and more than 100,000 hell mantises flashed their ferocious and huge bodies in the air. After devouring so many lava dragons, these hell mantises were almost 10,000 feet in size. In addition to the corpses of the fire dragons, Yichen also fed them some very hard ores. Therefore, the combat effectiveness of these hell mantises was quite terrifying at this time. Then Yichen turned to look at the Lava Dragon King and asked, "How about you? How's the task I gave you going?" The Lava Dragon King said politely, "Your Majesty, don't worry. This time, I can guarantee that at least tens of thousands of people have seen me." At that time, I was holding the heads of 2 tribe leaders in my hands, and I was swinging them over a giant tribe. They wanted to chase me, but I quickly got rid of those idiots. Yichen nodded. "I've set up the stage and lit the fire. Now let's see how the 2 tribes will perform." Chapter 1491. Before dawn, the palace of the Black-Armed King was already in a hubbub. All the generals under him had gathered. Every one of them had a ferocious look on their faces as they roared furiously. The Black-Armed King was awakened from his sweet dream. A gust of wind blew, and he appeared on the white bone throne. He stared coldly at his subordinates and asked, "Do all of you want to die? Why have you come to my palace so early in the morning?" Everyone trembled in fear. They all knew that it was very serious for the Black-Armed King to be disturbed from his sleep. However, they had to come today for this matter. "Your Majesty, it's not good. Something happened again tonight. 1,000 tribes were wiped out in our territory in one night. More than 1 million citizens were killed or injured." "What?" A loud boom was heard. The entire palace fell by more than 20 feet. The white bone throne under the Black-Armed King turned into powder in an instant. A terrifying aura erupted from the Black-Armed King's body. All the subordinates in the palace were trembling in fear. The Black-Armed King suppressed the anger in his heart. He gritted his teeth and said, "What happened? How many enemies did they invade?" There were more than 1,000 tribes and millions of citizens. Even if there were millions of pigs, they couldn't have been wiped out overnight. How many enemies did they invade? A few of the generals looked at each other with ugly expressions, then said in a low voice, "Your Majesty, the enemy this time was cunning and cruel. They came and went without a trace. Their methods were too brilliant. Those tribes that were destroyed didn't even have time to put up a decent resistance before they were destroyed. No one was left alive, so we still don't know who did it. It's just that general looked like he wanted to say something but stopped. He wanted to say something but didn't want to." The Black-Armed King was furious. "But what?" The general gritted his teeth and said, "But someone found the black gold fire dragon at the scene of the crime again. It's the trace of Changpan, the general under the Red Sea King." The Black-Armed King didn't deny it immediately this time. Instead, he narrowed his eyes, and there was a cold glint in his eyes that no one could understand. After a long while, he said in a low voice, "Why does this black gold fire dragon appear every time? What secret is it hiding?" At this time, another general stood up and cupped his fists and said, "My king, according to our spies in the Red Sea territory, the Red Sea King has ordered all his subordinates to gather elite soldiers. Nominally, they're suppressing bandits within our borders, but we've discovered that they're constantly moving towards our borders. Now, they've already reached the border between our 2 countries. These 2 extermination incidents happened at the border between us and the Red Sea territory. This time, even if the relationship between the Black-Armed King and the Red Sea King was good, they still had to reconsider. What the hell is the Red Sea King doing? He has to give me an explanation. Pass down my orders. Gather all the elite soldiers within our borders. There must be a conclusion to this matter. This subordinate obeys. Finally, the black-armored king gave the order. These generals rubbed their palms together as they agreed and left the palace. They had been sulking for a long time and finally had a channel to vent their frustrations. Damn it, I'm sure that this matter is 100% related to the Red Sea King. If he didn't do this, I'll cut off my own head. I think so too. Even if the Red Sea King didn't do these two things, he must be behind it. Otherwise, why would he gather the security forces? I think he's clearly guilty. That's why he gathered the security forces and placed them all at our borders. Isn't he afraid that we'll retaliate? Under the influence of anger, the troops of the Black Arm territory gathered very quickly. In less than a day, tens of millions of elite soldiers and horses were marching over in a grandiose manner. As soon as the troops were gathered, Yi Chun received the news. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. It seemed like his plan was starting to work. So he led the Samsara Legion troops and quietly arrived at the border between the Black Arm Ridge and the Red Sea territory. The soldiers of the Samsara Legion had already been taken into his small world, and he went to find He Shah by himself. Black Shark was leading the elites of the 2 million elites at the front line of the border. Due to his straightforward personality, He Shah could be said to be the Red Sea King's most trusted general. The 2 million elites led by He Shah were the personal guards that the Red Sea King had spent a lot of effort to cultivate. Around him were the troops led by various generals. They were vast and boundless. In total, there were tens of millions of them. And behind this troop, there was a moving palace floating in the air. The Red Sea King was in the palace. Obviously, the Red Sea King had just arrived at the front line not long ago. He also rushed over when he received the news that the Black Arm Gang was gathering troops. At this moment, the Red Sea King was twirling 2 black beads that flashed with blue light in his hand. He narrowed his eyes and said to himself, "If you have a clear conscience, why do you need to gather the guards in such a hurry? You clearly found out that you have been exposed, so you want to fight to the death with me?" At this moment, the Red Sea King had a preconceived notion. The more he thought about it, the more reasonable it made sense. He believed that if what happened to his territory was really caused by the Black Arm King, why else would he gather the guards? At this moment, the Red Sea King suddenly heard an earth-shattering roar from the distant sky. "Old Red Sea, your old friend is here. Why don't you come out and meet him?" Hearing this voice, the Red Sea King sneered. Then he disappeared into thin air. The next moment, he stepped on a cloud and appeared in the sky at the border. And opposite him, the Black Arm King stood in the clouds. The Black Arm King stared at the Red Sea King who had appeared and said coldly, "Old Red Sea, don't you have anything to say to this king?" The Red Sea King's golden eyes flashed with an indescribable light. He revealed a mocking smile and said, "Old Black Arm, what do you want to hear from this king? You have gathered so many troops. Do you want to surrender to our Red Sea territory?" The Red Sea King's words were meant to mock the Black Arm King's invasion. Who knew that in the Black Arm King's ears, it had another meaning? Chapter 1492. He believed that the Red Sea King had directly admitted that he was the one who did it. Moreover, the Red Sea King had arrogantly asked him to bring all the people of the Black Arm territory to join the Red Sea King's army. The Black Arm King chuckled and stared at the Red Sea King and said, "Old man, I don't know where you got your courage from. You are actually so arrogant. Today, I will have a taste of your power." The Red Sea King coldly stared at the Black Arm King. Energy surged from his body, and a terrifying pressure was emitted from his body. The battle between the two was about to break out. At this moment, a shocking explosion suddenly came from the two armies under their feet. It was the 2 million elite troops led by He Shah. In an instant, thousands of elite soldiers were blasted into smithereens, their lives ending in an instant. He Shah also took the opportunity to roar madly. "Damn those bastards of the Black Arm territory. They actually dare to sneak attack us. Thousands of our brothers have been killed. We will avenge them." Following He Shah's roar, the 2 million elite soldiers immediately went crazy. Since they took the initiative to attack them, there was nothing to say. Under Heisha's lead, they fiercely charged forward. The Red Sea King's army was dumbfounded. They had never sneak attacked the other side. How did thousands of people die in an instant? The Red Sea King, who was originally in a confrontation, lowered his head and saw that thousands of his own troops had been sneak attacked. His heart ached so much that his eyes turned red. He roared furiously, "Black Arm, old bastard, you have gone too far. I will fight it out with you." Therefore, the Red Sea King madly charged at the Black Arm King. In an instant, two gigantic fire dragons that were more than 10,000 meters long began a frenzied battle in the sky. On the ground, Heisha led his troops to attack. Naturally, the generals of the Black Arm territory would not sit still and wait for death. They also led their men to charge forward. The battle erupted. Tens of millions of troops from both sides collided with each other. Yi Chun, who had been hiding in Heisha's ear all this time, revealed a sneer. Clearly, the trick just now was done by him. With his cultivation, no one would be able to detect a sneak attack at such a close distance. After thousands of people died in an instant, they could only suspect that the other party was behind this. The scene had already turned into a pot of porridge. Roars, sounds of collisions, and the sound of blood spraying rang out. Yi Chun quietly released the Lava Dragon King. At this time, the battlefield was already quite chaotic. Fire Dragon warriors were being killed every second, and the Lava Dragon King was among this group of people, taking advantage of the situation. Whichever side was at a disadvantage, he would go and help. This battle was truly a complete mess, and the sky and earth were in complete darkness. Intense energy collisions caused dust and smoke to cover the sky. The ground was already covered in blood, and the corpses of the fire dragons were piled up like a mountain. Since the battle had already begun, Yi Chun left the black shark's ear and flew into the air. Due to his invisibility technique, no one was able to discover him. Now, he was calmly observing the battle between the Red Sea King and the Black-Armed King. These were indeed two veteran Daluo Jinxian level experts. They seemed to have reached the peak of Daluo Jinxian. Although they were both more than 10,000 meters long, they were obviously almost 20,000 meters long. The Red Sea King and the Black-Armed King were in a crazy battle. They felt their disciples dying one after another under their feet. They were already furious. Originally, they wanted to test each other, but now that so many people had died, it was no longer a test. There was a real change. The hatred between the two sides could not be resolved. The Red Sea King did not even want to ask the Black-Armed King. How did they control those hell mantises? Why did they suddenly attack his territory? None of that was important now. His subordinates were killed so cruelly. He could only fight to the death. The Black-Armed King was the same. As soon as the two sides met, the Red Sea King asked him to surrender. This was simply outrageous. Yi Chun stared coldly at the battle between the two top experts. It was a pity that neither the Black-Armed King nor the Red Sea King noticed that there was an uninvited guest in front of them. According to Yi Chun's estimation, the Red Sea King and the Black-Armed King were at the level of the top experts in the Eldritch world. Although they were not as good as those veteran sages, their disciples were definitely no match for these two guys. There were many territories like the Black-Armed King and the Red Sea King in the Nether Devil world. If they were to gather and attack together, then the Eldritch world would encounter a huge disaster. Calculating the time, the Great Witch Demon War was getting closer and closer. However, he had not found any key to improve the fertility of the dragon race and the phoenix race. It's almost time. A cold light flashed through Yi Chun's eyes. Then he slowly uttered two words, "Formation rise." Suddenly, the whole battlefield was shrouded. Within an area of thousands of square kilometers, strange fog rose from the ground. In an instant, the whole battlefield seemed to be shrouded. It seemed that the fog was getting thicker and thicker. It was so dark that one could not see his own fingers. Even if it was right in front of him, it was very difficult to see clearly. An extremely austere wind blew from all directions. A sense of extreme danger filled the hearts of every fire dragon. The formation, covering thousands of square kilometers, was set up by Yi Chun in advance. At this moment, it was fully activated. Perhaps the Black-Armed King and the Red Sea King did not know that in order to set up this formation, Yi Chun had invested 20 million top-grade fire crystals in one go. At this time, when the formation was fully activated, it immediately triggered all the earth veins within an area of 100,000 square kilometers. Countless amounts of energy converged from all directions. When the Red Sea King and the Black-Armed King sensed that something was wrong, their faces suddenly changed. At the same time, they stopped fighting and wanted to get out of this place. Unfortunately, it was too late. Two earth-shattering palms suddenly stretched out from the black fog and grabbed the two of them tightly, one on each side. Even though the Red Sea King and the Black-Armed King tried their best, they still could not break free. Above the two huge, transparent palms, there were countless tube-like things that pierced into the two kings' bodies. In an instant, the Red Sea King and the Black-Armed King felt that the energy in their bodies was pouring out like a tide. You two struggled desperately, try to regain control of your bodies. Unfortunately, it was too late. Chapter 1493. Yi Chun deeply understood the principle of taking advantage of a person's weakness to take his life. He did not give the Black-Armed King and the Red Sea King any more chances. With a flash of light in his hand, the Godslayer that he had not used for a long time finally appeared in his hand. Ever since Yi Chun got used to using the Rui Jingu Bang, he had not used the Godslayer for a long time. The reason why he took it out now was because it was the most appropriate time. With a flash of light in the air, Yi Chun appeared behind the Black-Armed King out of thin air. Without hesitation, the Godslayer in his hand pierced through the Black-Armed King's huge head. Pucci! Blood splattered everywhere. Brain matter burst out. The Black-Armed King, who was struggling with all his might, suddenly stiffened his huge body and roared crazily. The Godslayer was crazily devouring his soul and all his essence energy. The Black-Armed King truly felt the threat of death. He struggled with all his might to get rid of it. Unfortunately, his body had long been nailed to the void by this large array. He was like a mosquito that was nailed to the wall. He could only watch helplessly as his divine soul was devoured just like that. In less than 2 breaths of time, the Black-Armed King's soul was completely destroyed. The light in his eyes dissipated. After losing all his energy essence, his body had become a worthless mummy. Yi Chun lightly stomped his foot and turned into smoke and dust, dissipating in the world. On the other hand, the pupils of the Red Sea King had shrunk to the size of a needle tip. He could only watch helplessly as the dignified Black-Armed King of the Black-Armed Territory was reduced to ashes. A feeling of extreme terror had already crept into his heart. Yi Chun slowly floated to the front of the Red Sea King with the Godslayer in his hand. A pair of cold and emotionless eyes had already locked onto the Red Sea King's head. The Red Sea King revealed a bitter smile. At this point, if he did not know that he and the Black-Armed King had been schemed against, then he had lived for so many years in vain. The Red Sea King looked at Yi Chun with extreme reluctance and said, "Your Excellency's method is brilliant. This king's skill is inferior to yours. I admit defeat, but let me know who killed me before I die." Yi Chun looked at the Red Sea King coldly and said, "The one who killed you is Yi Chun." Just as he finished speaking, Yi Chun's spear pierced through the Red Sea King's head. After struggling for a while, the Red Sea King followed in the footsteps of the Black-Armed King. After devouring 2 peak-level Daluo Jinxian fire dragons, Yi Chun's Godslayer felt a burning sensation, as if it had eaten too much. Yi Chun, on the other hand, could easily sense that the Godslayer was evolving at a very fast speed through its huge body. This made Yi Chun overjoyed. He wondered what level Godslayer would reach after its evolution. Even if the evolution wasn't complete, there was nothing to be afraid of. After all, this was the underworld devil world, and there was no lack of such nutrients. They could just continue to slaughter. On the ground, The soldiers of the Red Sea territory and the Black Armed King's territory were already in full swing, almost as if they had gone crazy. The number of soldiers on both sides was getting smaller and smaller, and a thick layer of blood had already covered the ground. The smell of blood soared into the sky, and this place was like hell on earth. The gray cloud that Yi Chun controlled this formation had already spread out at a terrifying speed. In just a few blinks of an eye, it had enveloped the entire battlefield. This gray cloud had very low visibility, and it could also effectively block the lives of these soldiers. They couldn't see things that were 30 feet away from them. They didn't know where this gray cloud came from, but they instinctively felt that it was the doing of the other party. They were all suspicious, waving their weapons and looking around vigilantly. In a place where they couldn't see, the soldiers of the Samsara Legion had already entered the battlefield silently under the leadership of Dian Wei and Guofeng Xiao. Behind them, those huge nether mantises also entered the battlefield with their bodies that didn't have any temperature. Regardless of whether it was the Black Armed King's territory or the Red Sea territory, the soldiers of both sides pricked up their ears to listen to the movements around them. Soon, they felt their hair stand on end. This was because they heard extremely suppressed, muffled groans from time to time in the thick fog not far away, as if someone's mouth was covered. And from time to time, there was the sound of chewing. Crunch, crunch. It seemed that something was being devoured. Yi Chun looked indifferently at the joint attack of the Samsara Legion and the Nether Mantises, killing the zombies of the two territories with high efficiency, and nodded in satisfaction. At this point, this battle was almost a foregone conclusion. Within the range of the gray fog, there would definitely not be a single fire dragon warrior who would escape. This time, the operation that he had planned for a long time had finally achieved the final victory. After the subordinates of the Red Sea King and the Black Armed King were all wiped out, then these two territories were almost completely defenseless. What was left for Yi Chun, other than a huge amount of wealth, were the lambs waiting to be slaughtered. A ruthless light flashed in Yi Chun's eyes. He planned to use 2 days to kill all the living beings in these two territories, then continue to the next territory. At this time, in a palace 10,000 miles away from the battlefield, a young man in a black robe was sitting cross-legged there. The entire palace was heavily guarded, and on the left and right of this young man in black stood 2 old men with shocking auras. At this moment, the young man suddenly opened his eyes. He raised his head and looked into the distance, as if his gaze could penetrate hundreds of millions of miles. He said coldly, "The auras of the Red Sea King and the Black Armed King have disappeared at the same time. Something must have happened to their territories. Quickly go and investigate. If there are any clues, report back immediately." "Yes, Demon Lord." After bowing respectfully, the 2 old men retreated and left the palace. After leaving the palace, one of the black-robed old men turned his head and asked, "The Black-Armed King and the Red Sea King's cultivation are about the same as yours and mine. They're both peak Daluo Jinxian powerhouses. Who can kill them silently?" The other black-robed old man also sighed faintly and said, "Who knows? You can't be suspecting that the Demon Lord's speculation is wrong, right?" The other old man trembled in fear and immediately waved his hand and said, "Don't talk nonsense. I just think that if the other party has the ability to kill both the Black Armed King and the Red Sea King at the same time, then the 2 of us won't be of any help at all. We'll just die in vain." Chapter 1494. Are you stupid? Our purpose this time is not to fight to the death with the murderer, but to find out the mastermind behind the scenes. The rest will be left to others. Then the 2 old men turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the sky. After they disappeared, the Demon Lord in the palace suddenly opened his eyes and a red light flashed in them. He said to himself, "Who the hell dares to make trouble in my territory? Originally, after I finished all this, I could invade other worlds. How hateful!" Yi Chun, who was hundreds of millions of miles away, seemed to have sensed something. He looked up in the direction of the palace, and Yi Chun frowned. It seemed that the water in the netherworld demonic realm was deeper than he thought. After thinking for a while, Yi Chun could not figure it out, so he stopped thinking about it. At this time, the battlefield was coming to an end. The fog had dissipated, and the whole battlefield was full of corpses. Dian Wei was leading the Samsara Legion soldiers to clean up the battlefield, finishing off the enemies who were seriously injured but not dead. The only one who survived for the Blackhorn territory and the Red Sea territory was He Sha, who had secretly joined Yi Chun. The other generals were all killed. In order to kill these generals, it took a lot of effort. In the end, Yi Chun personally took action to kill them one by one. At this time, on the whole battlefield, those huge ghost mantises were gorging on the corpses of these fire dragons. Their stomachs were like bottomless pits. When these corpses were swallowed, the bodies of these ghost mantises were rapidly expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. Half an hour later, the battlefield had been cleaned up. These ghost mantises, whose bodies had skyrocketed to more than 10,000 feet, hid in the darkness again and disappeared. Guo Fengxiao and Dian Wei strode to Yi Chun and reported the situation of the battle to him. Your Majesty, the Blackhorn territory and the Red Sea territory had a total of 70 million enemy troops. Except for some of them who killed each other, the rest were all wiped out by us. More than 300 of our brothers were killed or wounded. Yi Chun nodded slightly. All the elite warriors of the Samsara Legion had a strand of their soul placed in their pocket dimension. As long as their soul was not destroyed, Yi Chun could bring them back to life. As for these soldiers who had already died once, their strength would definitely increase exponentially. Yi Chun looked at the fatigued Dian Wei and Guo Fengxiao and knew that they were under a lot of pressure. Leading 1 million Samsara Legion soldiers to ambush tens of millions of Fire Dragon natives was indeed a difficult task. Although he had the help of the Fog Array and the Nether Mantis, he was still able to achieve such a result. However, Yi Chun wouldn't easily praise them. Instead, he said in a deep voice, I know that you are very tired right now. Now is not the time to rest. Immediately gather all the brothers. It's time for us to collect the spoils of war. With Yi Chun's order, the warriors of the Samsara Legion gathered again. Now, all the masters and rulers of the Blackhorn and Red Sea territories had all been killed. Just when they were without a leader, the Samsara Legion came. With the help of the Nether Mantis, they were simply unstoppable. Tribes were wiped out one by one. It was different from the conflicts and even invasions between the native tribes of the Nether Devil Realm. Yi Chun's Samsara Legion didn't want any prisoners at all. They didn't want anyone alive. Wherever they went, they killed, burn and loot. And this time, Yi Chun and the Samsara Legion didn't have to worry about alerting the enemy or other existences. They strove to finish cleaning up the territories as quickly as possible. In one day, the Samsara Legion swept across 90,000 miles and killed tens of millions of creatures. It could be said that the fire dragons and all the creatures in the two territories had encountered a disaster. The supreme-grade fire spirit crystal veins in the two territories were also destroyed. Yi Chun didn't give them any chance to rest and recuperate. He directly used a big method and directly extracted the entire vein. The soldiers of the Samsara Legion didn't take off their armor. Even the weapons in their hands were bent. Their bodies were red as if they were soaked in blood. Only God knew how many enemies they had killed. In this way, it only took a day and a half to comb through the entire territory like an iron comb. The two territories were incomparably clean. All the tribes had been slaughtered. And Yi Chun's greatest gain was the countless supreme-grade fire spirit crystals, which had been piled up like a mountain in his small world. After slaughtering billions of creatures, the millions of elite soldiers of the Samsara Legion exuded a fierce, murderous aura. They were like demons who were ready to devour people at any time. Under the training of Yi Chun, without caring about the cost, more than half of these soldiers had reached a cultivation bottleneck. They needed to carefully comprehend to break through. Seeing this situation, Yi Chun directly asked Dian Wei and the others to leave the Nether Devil Realm and teleport to the sacred city of Samsara. Instead, Zhang Fei, Zhao Yun, and Guan Yu came with 3 million soldiers of the Samsara Legion and the White Horse Righteous Army to take over. Zhang Fei held the serpent spear in his hand and walked back and forth excitedly. "Your Majesty, you don't know how smug Dian Wei was when he went back. He always bragged to me about how many enemies he had killed. Your Majesty, just watch this time. I performed better than him." He glanced at Zhang Fei and ignored this boorish man. His eyes stopped at the 1 million soldiers of the White Horse Righteous Army, led by Zhao Yun. At this time, the 1 million soldiers of the White Horse Righteous Army were all riding draconic horses with the bloodline of flood dragons. These draconic horses were more than 10 times stronger than ordinary Fergana horses. These draconic horses had a speed that was difficult for humans to reach. They could travel thousands of miles in a day. They were the rare rapid mobility troops of the Samsara Legion. Not only that, when Yi Chun asked Zhao Yun and Guan Yu to pass through the foggy swamp outside, he asked Blackie for 800,000 nether mantises. Together with the ones here, the number reached 1 million. Except for Zhang Fei, Guan Yu and Zhao Yun were quite steady. In addition, Yi Chun also asked Guo Fengxiao to stay. After all, Guo Fengxiao had been here for a while and was very familiar with the environment here. Yi Chun ordered coldly, "The 3 of you are new here. You're not familiar with the environment and the enemies here. In short, you have to listen to the orders of military counselor Guo Fengxiao. Whoever dares to disobey will be killed without mercy. Your subordinate understands." Guo Fengxiao and Yi Chun stared at the territories on the map at the same time like wolves. It was time to take action. Chapter 1495. Yi Chun was suddenly inspired by Zhao Yun's White Horse Righteousness. With a wave of his hand, the 100,000 behemoths that were more than 1,500 feet in size appeared in the void. The strength of these nether mantises increased with the increase in their size. Now that these nether mantises had the ability to become invisible, as long as they were not within 1,000 feet of the Daoyuo Jingxian, they would never be discovered. However, these nether mantises had a fatal weakness, which was that they were not intelligent enough. They could only carry out some relatively simple orders, such as slaughtering a tribe, and so on. More complicated orders would be greatly discounted. These mutated nether mantises had amazing combat power. If they were only used to do these things, it would be a waste. They should be able to display more terrifying abilities. Yi Chun's character had always been swift and decisive. Dragging his feet was his habit. Since he had thought of this, he directly selected 100,000 of the most elite scouts from the 3 million soldiers of the Samsara Legion. These scouts went deep into the enemy's rear all year round to spy on intelligence and capture spies. Whether it was their ability to adapt or their personal insight, they were all very outstanding. They were proficient in camouflage, ambush, infiltration, and sniping. They were the sharpest of the sharpest knives, the best of the best. The loyalty of the soldiers of the Samsara Legion was unquestionable. Under Yi Chun's command, the 100,000 nether mantises all signed a master-servant contract with these scouts. After the contract was signed, these scouts flew up and stood on the backs of these nether mantises. On the back of the nether mantises, a crack opened silently, revealing an internal space that could accommodate 2 people. When the scouts entered, the crack on the back closed automatically. It was a perfect fit, as if they were one. At this time, these scouts had completely integrated with the nether mantises. Through the pair of huge compound eyes, they could see everything around them. There were no blind spots. Moreover, due to the mutation of the nether mantises, not only could they see everything clearly within 1,000 miles, but their vision would also not be affected even in pitch-black darkness. The scouts and the nether mantises were telepathically connected. There was no need for words at all. With just a thought, the nether mantises would immediately execute it. The master-servant contract that Yi Chun developed on the basis of the contract book was incomparably powerful. These scouts found that as long as they entered the operating space, they would be completely integrated as one. The nether mantis was like an extension of their bodies. It was as if he was using his own arm, and he was very flexible. With these quick-witted and ruthless scouts, the lethality of these nether mantises was increased by more than 10 times. Yichen stood in the air with his hands behind his back. Guan Yu, Zhao Fei, Zhao Yun, and Guo Fengxiao stood on either side of him. The general stared in shock at the 100,000 behemoths in front of them, appearing and disappearing in the void. They were either advancing or retreating or intercepting and attacking midway, making all sorts of difficult changes in formation. Guan Yu, Zhao Yun, and Zhang Fei had just arrived, so they were not clear about the combat power of these giant nether mantises. However, Guo Fengxiao was different. He had witnessed the growth of these nether mantises from the beginning to the end, and he was also the most clear about the terrifying lethality of these nether mantises. When a butcher's knife had its own soul, it would unleash a power that was incomparably terrifying. Guo Fengxiao was also full of admiration for Yi Chen's miraculous means. Guo Fengxiao immediately bowed and said respectfully, "Your Majesty, this pioneering work of yours will definitely shock the past and present. This army will also be the nightmare of all enemies. Your Majesty, please give this army a name." Yichen looked at the dark bodies of the nether mantises in the void, which were shining with a metallic light. The giant sides that were more than 100 feet long carried the aura of death. Yichen responded and said, "Since this army will become the nightmare of all enemies, then let's call it the Death God Cavalry." As soon as Yichen finished speaking, Guan Yu, Zhao Yun, Zhang Fei, and the others couldn't help but shudder. The chill that rose from their hearts made their entire bodies feel cold. They made a comparison in their hearts. If their troops were to encounter this Death God Cavalry, they would definitely be completely annihilated if there were no accidents. Yichen stared at the Death God Cavalry that was neatly arranged in a square formation in front of him and muttered to himself, "Now that this army has a soul, then it's time to choose a few suitable generals." Thinking of this, Yichen turned his head and glanced at Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, and Zhao Yun. He secretly shook his head. Yichen had high expectations for the general of this Death God Cavalry. A proud general like Guan Yu wouldn't do, a reckless general like Zhang Fei wouldn't do, and a righteous general like Zhao Yun wouldn't do either. Thinking of this, he casually asked, "Fengxiao, this emperor intends to assign a general to this Death God Cavalry. Do you have any recommendations?" Guo Fengxiao pondered for a moment and immediately cupped his fists and said, "Your Majesty, this subject does have recommendations. However, it's not just one person. This subject recommends 2 generals, Zhang Liao and Gao Shun. Zhang Liao and Gao Shun's personalities complement each other perfectly. Together with poison warrior Jiasu, this combination is perfect." Hearing Guo Fengxiao's words, Yichen's eyes lit up. He clapped and said, "Zhang Liao, Gao Shun, and poison warrior Jiasu. Haha, this is indeed a golden combination. Then it's decided. Pass down my decree. Zhang Liao, Gao Shun, and Jiasu are to immediately take over the Death God Cavalry as soon as possible." When Zhang Liao, Gao Shun, and Jiasu received Yi Chen's decree in the saint city of Samsara, they immediately rushed to the Nether Devil World. The 3 of them had been through hundreds of battles and were very experienced. When they saw the Death God Cavalry, their eyes lit up. Zhang Liao and Gao Shun immediately joined the team. Yi Chen personally selected 3 of the largest ghost mantises for them as mounts. Yi Chen called all of them to the front and said, "With the establishment of a new unit, I should give all of you time to get used to each other. However, what we lack the most is time. Now, I order the Death God Cavalry to immediately enter the battle. Work together with the soldiers of the Samsara Legion and take them by surprise." "Yes, Your Majesty." As the generals left, Jiasu and Guo Fengxiao gathered together. The 2 top strategists discussed for a while and came up with the most effective attack plan. Immediately, the 2 teams brought along a whirlwind of death and swept towards the Nether Devil World. Chapter 1496. Wherever they went, there was a storm of blood. The creatures of the Nether Devil realm suffered a calamity. Whether it was the large or medium-sized tribes, or the nether trolls lurking in some barren mountains and unruly rivers, as long as they were targeted by the Samsara Legion or the Death Cavalry, they would not be able to escape death. Yichen's method was very simple. That was to use battle to nurture battle. During the battle, the warriors of the Death Cavalry would get used to each other. Through the cruelest and simplest slaughter, the nether mantises that were transferred and later would quickly grow and transform into combat strength. In a short span of 2 days, 3 territories that were similar to the previous Black Arm territory and the Red Sea territory had completely fallen. These territories, with a radius of tens of millions of miles, had become a silent land of death. There were no living creatures. Countless large and small tribes were completely destroyed, just like that. With Yichen's countless top-grade fire spirit crystals, both Lava Dragon King and He Sha's strength increased rapidly. Lava Dragon King and He Sha were in a competitive relationship. Neither would give way to the other. They both reached the peak of Daiyuo Jinxian at the same time. After signing the contract, He Sha was loyal to Yichen. He Sha did not care about Lava Dragon King's hostility at all. In terms of bloodline, He Sha's bloodline was slightly higher than Lava Dragon King's. In other words, He Sha's cultivation level increased faster than Lava Dragon King's. Lava Dragon King was really under a lot of pressure now. This guy who came later had vaguely become Yichen's most powerful mount. Even the 4 odd beasts, the ancestor Qilin's youngest son, was not enough now. Although there was a contract, He Sha was also very grateful for his previous encounter. If Yichen had not taken him in as a mount, he would have been completely dead like the Red Sea King. With He Sha and Lava Dragon King, these 2 native traders, Yichen's plan went very smoothly. While Yichen was destroying these territories, he also planned to select a few Fire Dragon Kings with similar aptitudes as Black Shark to serve as his followers and mounts. However, there were very few that could satisfy him. Yichen would rather go without than have something substandard. He would just get rid of those that did not meet his requirements. Several hours after Yichen and his team disappeared, the void rippled, and the 2 black-robed old men appeared out of thin air. The 2 old men looked at the ruins of their territory with an unsightly expression. The area within a radius of tens of millions of miles had become desolate, with broken walls everywhere. One of the elders said in a hoarse voice, "What kind of power could wipe out so many tribes in such a short time? At least tens of thousands of tribes have been wiped out. Moreover, the murderer is vicious and merciless. Wherever he goes, not even a blade of grass grows. You and I have been to so many places, but we haven't seen a single survivor. It's really shocking." The other elders said worriedly, "That's right. At this speed, I'm afraid it won't be long before our Nether Devil world is completely wiped out. We must report the situation here to the Demon Lord as soon as possible." "Who is it? Get out here." One of the old men's expression suddenly changed, and he suddenly slapped the void to his left. Suddenly, a terrifying gust of wind swept in all directions. The void where he slapped suddenly collapsed, and a huge black hole vortex appeared. However, there was no one there. It was so lonely that it made people panic. I knew there were 2 tails behind me. "Sure enough, I've been waiting for you." With a cold voice, hundreds of nether mantises that were close to 2,000 feet in size slowly emerged from the void and surrounded the 2 old men. Among them, a red light flashed in the compound eyes of the nether mantis at the front. It seemed to be sizing up the 2 old men. He was the one who spoke just now, and the one who controlled this nether mantis was General Zhang Liao. Previously, he and Gao Shun had noticed that there were more pursuers behind them, so they deliberately stayed behind to set up an ambush. As expected, they were caught. The 2 old men's expressions changed at the same time. They wanted to break through the space and leave, but unfortunately, the surrounding space did not move at all. Zhang Liao sneered and said, "Old man, don't waste your energy. The surrounding space has already been locked by us. Unless you have the cultivation of a sage, only death awaits you." Zhang Liao looked at the 2 old men whose expressions were extremely ugly and threatened. "Old man, how do you want to die?" braised or fried? One of the old men said in a hoarse voice. Who are you? Aren't you afraid of the demon lord's anger? Zhang Liao said coldly. The demon lord? So you are the emissaries sent by the demon lord. Then, all the more we can't let you leave. Kill them. After saying that, Zhang Liao led a group of subordinates to attack. At the same time, the two old men turned into two dark dragons that were more than 10,000 feet in size, desperately trying to escape. Unfortunately, they underestimated the fierce soldiers under Zhang Liao's command. These scouts controlled the nether mantis like fish in water. They waved huge sickles and axes and crazily attacked the two dark fire dragons. Scales flew everywhere and blood boiled. The two fire dragons were obviously exhausted. Soon, they were in a sorry state and dripping with blood. The two fire dragons looked at each other miserably. Suddenly, one of the fire dragons gritted its teeth and spat out a seal the size of a human head. An extremely terrifying aura suddenly came from the seal, and the surrounding nether mantises were swept away. These nether mantises were forced to retreat thousands of feet, creating a gap in the encirclement. The two dark fire dragons squeezed out in a sorry state, turned into a black wind, and disappeared. Seeing that his subordinates were about to chase, Zhang Liao immediately raised a blade arm and said coldly, "No need to chase. These two old men can't escape." Thousands of miles away, the two old men broke through the void and escaped. They looked around in shock. When they saw that the pursuers didn't catch up, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. Damn it, these guys' combat power is too terrifying. We have to inform the demon lord immediately. We have to destroy them with lightning speed. That's right, we will go back immediately. At this moment, a black spear suddenly appeared in the void. Puffed. The Godslayer pierced through the head of one of the old men in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, the huge head split open like a watermelon. Without any chance to react, one of the old men was turned into ashes. Want to leave? No, none of you can leave. Yi Qin's body slowly appeared, and he stared coldly in front of him. Chapter 1497. As if knowing that he could not escape, the remaining old man calmed down instead. He stared at Yi Qin's Godslayer that was dripping with blood. Then, he said word by word, "You're not from the Nether Realm. You're an invader from the outside world. You're the one who caused all this, right?" Yi Qin stared at him expressionlessly and said, "You're about to die. Why you care so much? Tell me in detail about your demon venerable. Perhaps I can give you a quick death." The old man suddenly laughed wildly. "Huh? You want me to betray our Lord Demon Venerable? Sure, come here and I'll tell you." After saying that, Yi Qin did not move, and neither did it. Yi Qin's eyes gradually turned cold. Stubborn guy, attack. As soon as Yi Qin gave the order, the Lava Dragon King and Heisha suddenly jumped out of the void, one on the left and one on the right. The two huge bodies pressed toward the old man. "Traitors, you're all damn traitors. You've betrayed Lord Demon Venerable and the Nether Realm." When the old man saw Lava Dragon King and Black Shark attacking him, he was so angry that his whole body trembled and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The old man's cultivation base was slightly more powerful than the Lava Dragon King or Heisha, but he was at an absolute disadvantage in the face of their joint attack. The old man only lasted for less than half an hour before he was pressed to the ground by Heisha and the Lava Dragon King, unable to move. Even so, the old man was still cursing and struggling desperately. The scales on his body were like snowflakes, peeling off one after another, revealing his bloody body. Yi Qin did not talk nonsense with the old man at all, nor did he bother to use any cruel punishment. Instead, he floated forward and pressed his palm toward the old man's head. The old man seemed to have realized something. He gritted his teeth, and the energy in his body circulated violently. "You want to use the soul-searching technique on me? Unfortunately, you found the wrong person. At most, we'll die together." After saying that, the energy in the old man's body suddenly contracted, and he was about to self-destruct. Both Lava Dragon King and He Sha's expressions changed. This was the self-detonation of a Daluo Jinxian level super expert. Its power was absolutely extraordinary. Even he and Hazer would be seriously injured. However, without Yi Chen's order, Hazer and Lava Dragon King continued to press down on the old man without moving an inch. Yi Chen looked coldly at the old man who had sunk into madness. He sneered and said, "You are too naive. In front of me, you can't even self-detonate even if you want to." After he finished speaking, a strange energy instantly entered the old man's body, creating invisible black shackles along his huge body. Just like that, his meridians and liver were completely entangled, and the violent energy was completely locked and absorbed. The old man was like a dried salted fish. His entire body was stiff as he lay there, unable to move at all. Even if he blinked his eyes, it would feel as if there was 1,000 pounds of gravity. Not to mention self-detonating. He couldn't even curse out loud if he wanted to. Yi Chen finally calmed down and began to search the old man's soul. Immediately, the old man's entire life was displayed in front of Yi Chen, without the slightest bit of privacy. Yi Chen flipped through the old man's memories. Suddenly, he saw a black light flash in the depths of the old man's soul. It seemed that there was a mass of memories sealed there. Yi Chen snorted coldly and immediately rushed his mental power over. The old man's spirit shuddered, and a black figure gradually appeared. The black-clothed man looked coldly and disdainfully at Yi Chen and said, "You actually dare to search the soul of this venerable subordinate. Who are you?" Yi Chen was stunned at first. Obviously, he didn't expect this guy to leave a soul seed in the depths of the old man's soul. Once stimulated by the outside world, it would immediately activate this soul doppelganger. Yi Chen didn't answer. Instead, he asked, "You are the devil honorable of the nether devil world, right?" "That's right. At least you have good eyesight. This venerable Lin Piyang is the son of destiny of the martial Yin Yang world. I'm also the successor of the martial ancestor Lin Dong. Which world are you from?" The devil honorable Lin Piyang was quite smart. With a glance, he could tell that Yi Chen was also a mutant like him and came from another world. To be able to invade the Nether Devil Palace so early, he must be the son of destiny of another small world. Yi Chen's pupils slightly shrank. He already knew that there were many sons of destiny of the great desolate world that had ascended and caused quite a commotion. Some built cities, some built countries. These children of destiny were all doing very well. They were even on par with the arrogant and domineering demon race. What Yi Chen did not expect was that in the Nether Devil world, the martial Yin Yang world son of fortune had taken over this place. Moreover, he had become the devil honorable of the Nether Devil world. "I come from the great desolate world, the son of destiny of the Three Kingdoms world." Lin Piyang suddenly laughed. "Haha, it's just a Three Kingdoms world. I've heard that it's just a low-level world. You must be having a hard time in the great desolate world. So you came to my Nether Devil world?" Lin Piyang said naturally. "Just based on the destruction you have caused in my Nether Devil world, this venerable won't be able to vent my hatred even if I cut you into pieces. However, seeing that you and I are both sons of destiny of the great desolate world, I can give you a chance to recognize me as your master. You can be my vanguard when I invade the great desolate world. After I conquer the great desolate world, I will definitely treat you well." Yi Chen sneered. He didn't know how much of Lin Dong's skills Lin Piyang had learned, but he was quite arrogant. As expected, he had been planning to invade the great desolate world. However, Yi Chen didn't understand why the Nether Devil world hadn't succeeded in invading the great desolate world until his rebirth. "I'll be your vanguard, right? Then when do you plan to invade the great desolate world?" Lin Piyang seemed to think that Yi Chen had compromised. He waved his hand arrogantly and said, "Don't worry, this venerable is now at the critical moment of breaking through to the Saint Realm. After I break through to the Saint Realm, it will be the time for the Nether Devil world's army to invade the great desolate world." Yi Chen suddenly smiled. He seemed to understand. Lin Piyang must have encountered some trouble when he was breaking through to the Saint Realm. That was why the Nether Devil world hadn't invaded the Great Desolate World yet. Seeing Yi Chen smile, Lin Piyang's face darkened. How dare you? Since you have submitted to this venerable, you should know the rules. Kneel down and offer me your primordial spirit. Chapter 1498. Unfortunately, in the face of this threat, Lin Poyang was met with an extremely sharp black spear light. Although Yi Chun had only sent a wisp of his spirit into the old man's divine soul, he was still able to transform into his own body. He was holding the Godslayer in his hand. With a terrifying speed, the Godslayer stabbed at Lin Poyang. This spear was enough to destroy heaven and earth. This spear was Yi Chen's answer. Impudent! How dare you! Lin Poyang was furious. He had never expected that Yi Chen would dare to take the initiative to attack him. Lin Poyang was so angry that he suddenly pointed a finger forward and roared loudly. One finger imprisoning heaven and earth. Yi Chen only felt a huge finger appear in front of him, and with an oppressive posture, it came crashing down violently. A strong fighting spirit flashed in his eyes, and he did not flinch at all. The Godslayer in his hand fiercely collided with the finger. There was a loud rumbling sound that sounded like muffled thunder. After that, the two of them retreated. Yi Chen shook the Godslayer in his hand and said with a sneer, "The famous Great Desolate, imprisoning heavenly finger is nothing more than this. I really don't know where you get your confidence from." When Lin Poyang saw that his finger had been broken, he became even more angry and continued to stretch out his second finger. Two finger shattering mountains and rivers. An attack 10 times stronger than the first one came again. This second finger brought with it an extremely terrifying destructive power, and it shook the old man's divine soul violently. Yi Chen stared at Lin Poyang's finger, and a smile suddenly bloomed at the corner of his mouth. He did not continue to attack Lin Poyang. Seeing Yi Chen standing there, as if he had given up resistance, he was vigilant and a little puzzled. What is this boy doing? Could it be that he knows that he is no match for me, so he has given up resisting? But in the next moment, he knew why Yi Chen was laughing. Because the surrounding space had been violently shattered, and everything in front of him had turned into nothingness. Yi Chen's shadow also gradually faded away, and even he himself was getting weaker and weaker. Following that, there was a loud bang as the entire space shattered completely. Everything disappeared. In the outside world, a glint flashed in Yi Chen's eyes as he withdrew that wisp of mental will. Before his eyes, the old man's huge dragon head had already been blasted to smithereens. The reason was that Lin Poyang had forgotten that the two of them were fighting inside the old man's spirit. The strength of this old man's divine soul was not enough to support Lin Poyang's two-finger shattering mountains and rivers. Therefore, it was completely shattered before it could even touch Yi Chen. At this moment, in the demon sovereign's palace billions of miles away, Lin Poyang suddenly opened his eyes, and his body suddenly exuded an extremely terrifying aura. All the guard in the palace immediately prostrated themselves on the ground, trembling. They didn't know what had made the demon venerable so angry. Lin Poyang was ashamed and angry at this moment. Obviously, he also realized that he had been fooled by Yi Chen. He didn't feel bad about losing two generals. What made him angry was that he hadn't invaded other worlds yet, but invaders had actually come to his headquarters. Pass down this venerable's order. All the kings of the territories in the Nether Devil realm are to gather and work together to capture these damned invaders. Demon Venerable Nether Lin Poyang's order spread to all the territories in the Nether Devil realm in an instant. Thus, one after another, huge fire dragons rose into the sky and roared in the air. They gathered the defense forces in their territories and headed to Huqing City in a grandiose manner. At this time, Yi Chen had already returned to his troops and met up with Guan Yu, Zhao Yun, Zhang Fei, Guo Fengxiao, Zhang Liao, Gao Shun, and the others. Yi Chen ordered indifferently. There's no need to hide anymore. I reckon that the Nether Devil realm will gather their troops soon and launch a decisive battle with us. Immediately take advantage of the fact that they haven't finished gathering and seize more territory. All the generals immediately accepted the order. Yichen didn't retreat behind the scenes this time. Instead, he personally led the troops, with Zhang Jiao, Gao Shun, and Jia Zhu leading the Death Cavalry as the vanguard, and launched a fierce attack on the hinterland of the Nether Devil realm. The 1 million Nether Mantises and the 3 million Samsara Legion soldiers cooperated well with each other and divided the spoils of war like a whirlwind sweeping away the clouds. Whether it was the Nether Mantises or the 3 million Samsara Legion soldiers, they all made rapid progress. This was enough to prove that Yi Qin's policy of using war to support war was very correct. In just 3 days, Yi Qin's army had captured more than 30% of the territory in the Nether Devil realm. The number of fire dragons killed by them was already in the hundreds of millions. It was worth mentioning that with such a huge base, Yi Qin finally picked out 16 giant fire dragon kings that were about the same strength as black mantises and forced them to sign contracts. At this time, 16 sturdy and huge black gold fire dragons were circling and dancing behind Yi Qin. With Yi Qin's order, they turned into a giant man more than 5 meters tall, wearing exquisite armor. At this time, they were all wearing divine armors made by the exquisite craftsmen of the small world. These armors were not gorgeous, but incomparably ferocious. Every design was aimed at efficiently killing the enemy. Including Hazel Shark and the Lava Fire Dragon King, they had a total of 18 people. Each and also gave their team a number called the Black Diamond Guards. These 18 peak-level Daluo Jinxian Black Diamond Guards stood behind Yi Qin, looking awe-inspiring. Each of them held 2 divine weapons in their hands. Each weapon weighed hundreds of thousands of kilograms. Even if there was a small mountain in front of them, they could smash it to pieces with one blow. Yi Qin calmly put away the contract book, then looked at the 18 Black Diamond Guards behind him and nodded with satisfaction. Every single one of these Black Diamond Guards was a ferocious and domineering character who could fight. After they joined forces, the power they could unleash was multiplied. Looking at these Black Diamond Guards, Yi Qin could not help comparing them with the 10 demon gods under Dongwang Tai and Dijun. He wondered which one of them would be stronger when they met. After signing the contract book, these Black Diamond Guards were as loyal to Yi Qin as the Lava Fire Dragon King and Hazel Shark. As the local tyrants of the Nether Devil realm, under their leadership, the destructive power of the Death Cavalry Regiment and the Samsara Legion was greatly improved. 3 days later, the joint army led by Lin Poyang was finally assembled. They rushed toward Yi Qin in a mighty manner. Chapter 1499. Ever since Yi Qin found out that the Devil Lord of the Nether Devil world was actually Lin Dong's successor, he began to pay attention to him. He sent people everywhere to collect information about Lin Poyang. Through the integrated information from various sources, the Devil Lord of the Nether Devil world only changed more than 10 years ago. Devil Lord Yuming suddenly only cared about his own cultivation and did not care about the politics of the Nether Devil world at all. He only ordered the kings of the various territories in the Nether Devil world to hand over some natural treasures for cultivation on time. As for the conflicts and governance between the various kings, he did not care about them at all. This also caused a very chaotic situation in the Nether Devil world. Through these matters, Yi Qin could determine that the time of Lin Poyang's appearance was not much different from when he ascended to the prehistoric continent. However, he did not know why Lin Poyang would appear in the Nether Devil world and replace Devil Lord Yuming. However, it was clear that Lin Poyang's strength had increased very quickly. He believed that he had encountered many fortuitous encounters along the way. He had encountered various fortuitous encounters to raise his cultivation to this level. Lin Poyang had obviously broken through to the peak of Daluo Jinxian. After several days of battle, the soldiers of the Samsara Legion had made great progress. They were originally veterans who had been through hundreds of battles. When they were in the prehistoric continent, Every battle gave them an opportunity to improve. After coming to the Nether Devil world, they found that the speed of their cultivation had increased even faster. At this time, the 3 million Samsara Legion's soldiers were rapidly marching. As for the Death Knight Regiment scouts, they had already been sent out to hunt down the natives of the Nether Devil world. As for Yi Chun, he was sitting in an extremely tall palace, suspended in the air above the Samsara Legion. Yi Chun sat on a purple gold throne with 18 black diamond guards standing on both sides of him. These black diamond guards had already transformed into human form. Each of them had a sturdy body, and a trace of fierce and overbearing aura was emitted from their bodies. Below Yi Chun were Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Zhao Yun, Guofeng Xiao, Zhang Liao, Gao Shun, and Jia Su. Yi Chun sat on the throne and said in a deep voice, "Generals, Demon Venerable Yu Ming is currently gathering his army and heading towards us in full force. He wants to engage in a great battle with us. What do you all think?" Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, and Zhao Yun looked at each other, then took a step forward and said in a deep voice, "We will follow your Majesty's orders. We are willing to go through fire and water for your Majesty, and we will not hesitate to die 10,000 deaths." Yi Chun nodded, then turned to Guofeng Xiao and said, "Feng Xiao, what do you think about this matter?" Guofeng Xiao stroked the long beard under his chin, and a cold light shot out from his eyes. "Your Majesty, a fight is inevitable. However, how to fight is an art. I feel that the initiative should be in our hands, and not passively clashing with them head-on. This is not our advantage. We should expand the scope of this war. It would be best if the entire Nether Devil world was involved in the flames of war." Yi Chun frowned slightly. Originally, he did not plan to do this. With his character, he had always crushed his opponents head-on. Originally, he did not care about these small fries. Although he knew that the other party had the advantage in terms of time and place, the difference in numbers was too great. However, Yi Chun was still confident that he could defeat these natives of the Nether Devil world head-on. As for Lin Dong's successor, Lin Poyang, Yi Chun was also eager to compete with him. Jia Su clearly understood Yi Chun's character very well, so he stood out and said, "Your Majesty, we do not want to fight them head-on, not because we are afraid, but because we want to maximize our benefits through another method. I guess that Feng Xiao's idea of a roundabout battle is for us to split up, go around their main forces, and attack their weakest rear. I believe that when the time comes, they will be unable to take care of both the front and rear, and their morale will be shaken. That will be the best time for us to attack." Yi Chun narrowed his eyes slightly and nodded in a non-committal manner. He knew that Guofeng Xiao and Jia Su made such a suggestion to reduce the casualties of the Samsara Legion. After all, every soldier of the Samsara Legion who had experienced hundreds of battles was a treasure in the eyes of Jia Su and Guofeng Xiao. Even if they lost one, it was enough to make their hearts ache. Yi Chun was the same. These Samsara Legion soldiers had followed him through many battles and had made great contributions. If they were to die here, it would indeed be a sad thing. Although Yi Chun was also decisive in killing, he would follow good advice at critical moments. Therefore, he said in a deep voice, "Guan Yu, Zhao Yun, and Zhang Fei, each of you will lead 1,000,000 Samsara Legion soldiers. Each of you will lead an army of 300,000 Nether Mantises and split into 3 directions to penetrate the depths of the Nether Devil world. Guofeng Xiao, you will be in command of the Central Army. This time, our goal is not to kill as many enemies as possible, but to thoroughly muddy the waters of the Nether Devil world. As for Demon Venerable Yu Ming's army of millions, I will personally intercept and snipe it." After Guofeng Xiao and the others heard this, they looked at each other worriedly. Guofeng Xiao took a step forward and said in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, please reconsider. Your body is priceless. You cannot take the risk." Yi Chun waved his hand and said, "I have made up my mind. There is no need to say anything more. Execute the order immediately." "Yes, Your Majesty." With Yi Chun's order, the Samsara Legion and the Nether Mantis army immediately moved quickly. They were led by the three great generals, and they quickly moved in different directions. They were like ghosts in the night, aggressive like fire, and like three butcher knives that pierced the enemy's heart. As for Guofengxiao, he was in command of the Central Army. The information of the three troops was reported to him at any time like snowflakes. Guofengxiao adjusted the strategy according to the situation of the three troops. For a time, the entire Nether Devil world had fallen into a state of utter chaos. This time, according to Yi Chen's instructions, killing the enemy was secondary. The main thing was to create chaos. Usually, in a tribe, the adult fire dragons or leaders would all be beheaded, leaving only the old, weak, sick, and disabled. Only then would the butchers of the Samsara Legion leave, leaving behind a chaotic mess. The strong men of the tribe were all killed, and all the wealth was plundered. This was equivalent to the extermination of the tribe. Under the joint efforts of the three troops, tens of thousands of tribes suffered the same fate in a day. The cries of the old, weak, sick, and disabled shook the sky, causing a great panic in the Nether Devil world. When the information was gathered to Lin Poyang, Nether Demon Venerable, he flew into a rage. He slammed his palm on the table in front of him, shattering it into pieces. Chapter 1500. Lin Poyang growled in a low voice. "Damn cowards, cowards! Are you afraid to face me head-on? Pass down my order. All the defense organizations speed up the march and intercept them from all directions. We must kill all these damn bugs." All the territories in the Nether Devil realm had been mobilized by Lin Poyang. Billions of troops were moving in a grandiose manner. Whether it was in the sky or on the ground, the shadows of the army were everywhere. They formed an inescapable net and intercepted the front. Unfortunately, the Samsara Legion was very experienced in dealing with the encirclement and interception of the Nether Demonic Realm army. Moreover, the Samsara Legion paid the most attention to the intelligence function. Often, when the Nether Demon Sparrow army was mobilized, they would have already received the news. Under Guofengxiao's arrangement, they used a concealment formation to hide. After the army passed, they would come out again to continue the massacre and create chaos. On the Nether Demonic Realm side, less than 1 million defense organizations did not dare to act alone at all, because in a day, several Nether Demon troops of 1 million people were swallowed up. This time, the army of the Nether Demonic Realm, in addition to countless lava dragons, also had countless ghost knights riding on ghost warhorses. They swept over in a mighty manner, causing the entire world to tremble. As for Lin Poyang, he had been staying in the palace in the middle of the army with his eyes closed to cultivate. He believed that as long as Yi Chun did not leave the Nether Demonic Realm, then, even if the whole Nether Demonic Realm was turned upside down, he would still be found. What piqued Lin Poyang's interest even more was how Yi Chun had come to the Nether Devil world and even brought such a large army with him. As long as he found the way Yi Chun came to the Nether Demonic Realm, he could lead countless Nether Demonic Realm armies to invade the Chaos world. The resources of the Nether Demonic Realm were too poor. Even if he did his best, he could only squeeze out so little. Lin Poyang looked forward to the time when he took over the Chaos world. That would be the time for him to break through to the Saint Realm. There were hundreds of Daluo Jinxian-level auras around Lin Poyang. At this time, all of them narrowed their eyes, not daring to look at Lin Poyang. They were all kings of their territories. Although Lin Poyang did not care about the dirty affairs of their territories these years. However, if anyone dared to disobey his orders, they would definitely die a miserable death. Right at this moment, a thunderous voice resounded within the moving palace amidst the Nether Demonic World's army. "Lin Poyang, you brat, do you dare to come out and fight me to the death?" Lin Poyang, who was in the middle of cultivation, suddenly opened his eyes. Deep within his pupils, an extremely ferocious light flashed. "You really came." After that, Lin Poyang's figure flashed and disappeared from where he stood, chasing after Yi Chun. By the time he chased after him, Yi Chun had already disappeared without a trace. Lin Poyang frowned and closed his eyes. His enormous body spread out in all directions. Suddenly, he sneered and muttered to himself, "I've found you, damned intruder. Let's see where you can hide now." After saying that, Lin Poyang followed Yi Qin's direction and chased after him at lightning speed. The two of them, one chasing and one fleeing, traversed the void. In an instant, he had already fled tens of millions of kilometers away, and Yi Qin's back was already close at hand. However, Yi Qin's speed had increased by several notches, and he turned into a wisp of green smoke. In an instant, the distance between the two of them was once again widened. Lin Poyang could only grit his teeth and chase after him again. The two of them, one chasing the other, had traveled hundreds of millions of kilometers in less than half an hour. Suddenly, in front of him, Yi Qin, who was running wildly, suddenly stopped and turned around. He calmly waited for Lin Poyang, who was rushing over, with a sneer at the corner of his mouth. Lin Poyang was not a fool. In an instant, he seemed to have understood. Lin Poyang, whose face was ugly, suddenly laughed. "Do you think I can't see that this is your plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain? Today, I'll let you know what it means to go for wool and come home shorn." After that, Lin Poyang violently attacked Yi Qin. Yi Qin shook the Godslayer in his hand and laughed as he met the attack. The two of them were truly evenly matched, like a general meeting a good general. This battle was fought to their heart's content. Terrifying energy blasted out in all directions. With the two of them as the center, there was no creature that could survive within a radius of hundreds of kilometers. The ground cracked and mountains collapsed. Large swathes of trees were destroyed, and even the void was trembling incessantly. The Godslayer in Yi Qin's hand was even more elusive. Every shot was aimed at the vital points of Lin Poyang's body. Lin Poyang's every attack was like a thunderbolt. It was so powerful that it even vaguely drove the momentum of heaven and earth. A terrifying pressure enveloped Yi Qin. The Nether Devil Realm was Lin Poyang's home ground. He had been cultivating here for more than 10 years. At first, he had the home ground advantage. Lin Poyang had the upper hand, but as time passed, he felt that something was wrong. It was as if Yi Qin was deliberately looking for him to attack. More and more, Lin Poyang's strength did not decrease. Instead, it became more and more meticulous and powerful. Like a storm, the Godslayer's attack speed suddenly increased by more than 30%. Lin Poyang finally realized that his opponent was not going all out. His expression had already turned rather ugly. Lin Poyang thought that he was a genius. From a moment he stood out from hundreds of millions of people and became Lin Dong's disciple. He knew that he was destined to be outstanding and stand at the top of the world. By a freak combination of factors, there was an accident when he ascended. He actually ascended to the Nether Devil Realm. Fortunately, he was lucky. His sudden appearance disturbed Demon Venerable Yu Ming's breakthrough at the critical moment, causing Demon Venerable Yu Ming to go berserk. Lin Poyang also took the opportunity to occupy Demon Venerable Yu Ming's body. After inheriting Demon Venerable Yu Ming's enormous power, it could be said that his cultivation had always been lacking. Originally, Lin Poyang thought that he was the one and only king among the players. Until today, he met Yi Qin. Just as Lin Poyang and Yi Qin were fighting fiercely hundreds of millions of miles away, in the palace in the center of the Nether Devil Realm's army, the kings of the various territories were looking at each other. The palace was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. One of the kings whispered, "Lord Demon Venerable has been gone for some time. Could something have happened? Why don't we go out and look for him?" As soon as he finished speaking, hundreds of cold gazes immediately looked over. This guy could only shrink his neck and smile embarrassedly. "I was just saying, Lord Demon Venerable's strength is unparalleled. How could anything happen to him? He will definitely succeed and return in triumph." Chapter 1501. When one of them heard this, he said calmly, "The Demon Lord's strength is unparalleled. If even he can't deal with it, then we can't do anything. Let's just wait here." Sigh. The underworld has changed since more than 10 years ago. If it was still the same as before. Cough. Be careful with your words. For a moment, the palace fell into a short silence. Everyone knew what this meant. Indeed, the demon lord had changed since more than 10 years ago, and the underworld was in complete chaos. Although these leaders had their suspicions, no one dared to say anything because those who dared to say anything were already dead. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion and the screams of the underworld warriors before they died. The king's expressions changed as they stood up at the same time. Damn it, they're luring us away. One of them sneered. They think we're all pushovers. Then let's see what these damn invaders are capable of. Boom! At this moment, a corner of this magnificent palace suddenly collapsed. In the smoke and dust, two behemoths that were more than 10,000 feet in size suddenly appeared. Their armor was like black steel, and the protruding bone spikes were shining with a chilling light. Two sharp arms that were more than 10,000 feet long were stained with blood. Now, the Hell Mantis appearance was extremely ferocious and terrifying. Even its 8 slender legs had become as thick as a water tank. The Fire Dragon Kings in the palace were stunned. One of them subconsciously said, "What is this? Could it be that this is the weakest nether mantis in our nether realm?" The others also frowned. They were all familiar with the Hell Mantis. Ordinary ones were only about 10 feet long, and the elites could reach 10 feet long. Their kings were only around 300 feet long. But what was this behemoth that was more than 10,000 feet long? The glowing compound eyes of the nether mantis had already locked onto them. A voice filled with endless murderous intent rang out from within its body. "You have been surrounded by my army. Surrender or die." Hearing the voice of the Hell Mantis, the Fire Dragon Kings were stunned at first, but they quickly regained their composure. One of them sneered. "You want to capture us with just the two of you? Stop dreaming. Tisk, don't waste your breath on this fellow. Capture him and interrogate him about the origins of these invaders. I'm sure Lord Demon Lord will be very happy." At the same time, nearly 100 kings with frightening auras exuded their auras as they surrounded the two nether mantises with malicious intentions. Although this nether mantis was strange, there were nearly 100 Daluo Jinxian kings present. Wouldn't it be a piece of cake to deal with it? At this moment, the nether mantis suddenly let out a loud laughter that sounded like metal clashing. "Ha! You barbarians are really ignorant. I've traveled far and wide, so why would I put myself in danger alone? Where are the brothers of the Death God Cavalry?" The person controlling this netherworld mantis was one of the commanders of the Reaper Cavalry, General Zhang Liao. Boom! Despite Zhang Liao's words, the sound of buildings collapsing could be heard all around. A cloud of dust rose, and 300 nether mantises with a body size of more than 2,000 feet suddenly appeared. Death God Cavalry Vanguard Battalion, Squad 7, Zhang Dabiao, is here. Chilling roars could be heard from a few other directions. Death God Cavalry Vanguard Battalion, Squad 32, Lu Sanpao, is here. Death God Cavalry White Tiger Battalion, Squad 9, Pan Feng, is here. The kings of the various territories in the underworld looked at the sudden appearance of more than 100 squads, and their faces were terrifyingly gloomy. There were more than 30,000 mutant nether mantises that appeared at the same time. It was really scary. Where did these bastards come from? At this moment, Gao Shun's figure flashed from afar. With a flash of his sharp blade arm, he instantly split a fire dragon that was 3,000 feet long in half. He turned his head and said in a deep voice, "General Zhang, don't waste time. Let's end this quickly." Inside the armor, Zhang Liao's mouth twitched awkwardly. After so many years, Gao Shun's personality had never changed. He was cold, strict, and meticulous. Zhang Liao's eyes suddenly focused. Death God Cavalry Vanguard Battalion, Squad White Tiger Battalion, charge with me. Kill these barbarians without mercy. Yes, sir. The 30,000 nether mantises instantly pounced with a frenzied aura. They were extremely fast, like countless black rays of light shooting out. With a shrill whistle, they pounced in front of them in the blink of an eye. Sensing the danger, the kings didn't need anyone to remind them. They roared at the same time and soared into the sky. They pierced through the roof of the palace and turned into colorful fire dragons of different shapes and sizes. Haha, Jiasu, have been waiting for a long time. Soldiers kill, Jiasu roared. Hundreds of thousands of supreme-grade immortal stones flew out at the same time, embedded in the void according to different positions, and practiced with each other. The terrifying energy combined together. A viscous white mist suddenly surged in all directions, instantly filling the space within a radius of several hundred miles. At the same time, the Fire Dragon Kings felt as if they had fallen into a viscous swamp. Their speed instantly dropped by 30%, and their visibility was no more than 100 meters. Some complicated array patterns appeared on the surface of the nether mantis's bodies at the same time, so they weren't affected at all. At this time, the 30,000 nether mantises, led by Zhang Liao, had already soared into the sky and caught up. They and Jiasu's team attacked from two different directions, weaving in and out. Roar! The Fire Dragon King's hearts were unusually heavy. The other party had first lured them away from their base, then ambushed them, and even prepared a strange array in advance. Everything was linked, and every step was filled with killing intent. The other party had planned this for a long time. Today they were doomed. Being forced into a dead end, the Fire Dragon Kings became ferocious and began to counterattack. Slash! Sharp blades pierced through their bodies, and flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Every slash could take away thousands of kilograms of flesh and blood. Hundreds of nether mantises surrounded one Fire Dragon King, and cold light flashed like a storm. In just a breath's time, one of the Fire Dragon Kings had all its flesh and blood shaved off, and it became a pile of white bones. Only that huge head was left, and it was screaming in pain, "Kill me! Kill me now!" Seeing this, the other Fire Dragon Kings felt a chill in their hearts. This way of dying was too painful. Swoosh! A flaming blade slashed across, and the huge dragon head fell to the ground. This was one of the Fire Dragon Kings who couldn't bear to see him in such pain and helped him to escape. "Thank you." A drop of blood flowed from the corner of the huge dragon head's eyes, and its breath was extinguished. Kill! Strong winds blew all around, and the cruel and bloody battle continued. On the other side, Gao Shun led the other nether mantises and spared no effort in slaughtering the ordinary netherworld soldiers. Chapter 1502. It was indeed a cruel and bloody massacre. Perhaps if this army of underworld could invade the primitive world one day, it would bring a terrible disaster to the living beings in the primitive world. The army of underworld was at least as strong as an earth immortal, and they were ferocious, bloodthirsty, and fearless of death. If ordinary cultivators of the primitive world encountered them, they would have lost their courage before the battle. But now, the army of underworld was facing the army of nether mantises, which was even more powerful and terrifying. Both sides were not at the same level, and only those Daluo Jinxian's Fire Dragon Kings could leave some wounds on their bodies. These ordinary warriors of underworld could not even break their defense. The nether mantises could kill several hundred warriors of underworld in a flash. One after another, vortexes of death bloomed on the battlefield, spreading rapidly. At the same time, Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, and Zhao Yun were leading the warriors of the Samsara Legion, stirring up the situation in different directions. At the same time, they received a message from Guojia. His Majesty has begun the operation. Fiend Lord Nether has been lured away, and Zhang Liao, Gao Shun, and Jiasu are leading the cavalry of death to begin the beheading operation. I have a feeling that we don't have much time left in the netherworld. I hope the three of you can do everything you can to increase the result of the battle. In a place filled with dust and broken walls, Zhang Fei was sitting on a huge rock, stepping on the head of an old fire dragon. Zhang Fei grabbed a jar of wine that he brought from the prehistorical world with one hand and gulped it down like a cow, gulping down half a jar of wine. "This is great." Zhang Fei wiped the wine stain from the corner of his mouth, then threw the remaining jar to the personal guards behind him. The few personal guards immediately split the jar among themselves, beaming with joy. Zhang Fei's loud voice echoed in the air above the ruins. "Little brats, hurry up. After cleaning up the battlefield, we have to move on to the next one. We can't lose to second brother in Zilong." After saying that, Zhang Fei glanced at the nether mantises who had lowered their heads to chew on the food. He shook his head and muttered to himself, "These bastards can eat even more than I, old Zhang. Their stomachs are simply bottomless pits. I've been eating all the way here." In the other two directions, Guan Yu's face was grave and stern as he rode his horse towards the next tribe. Behind them, the smoke of war rose from all directions. Guan Yu's long and narrow red phoenix eyes flashed with a cold light. Those who are not of our race are bound to have different intentions. If they were to invade the primordial world, all living beings would definitely be plunged into misery and suffering. His Majesty's actions would be of great merit and benefit for all generations to come. Those sacred spirits of the primordial era should erect the longevity stele for His Majesty. On the other side, Zhao Yun's white dragon divine spear pierced through the hearts of 3 fire dragons. The sharp spearhead was not stained with a single drop of blood. Seeing that one of his subordinates was in danger, his figure immediately flashed, and he appeared in an instant. Puffed. The subordinate was about to close his eyes and wait for death when he saw a tall and straight figure blocking in front of him. The ferocious fire dragon's head had already been pierced. "Thank you, General, for saving my life." Zhao Yun glanced at him and said gently, "Even if you are to kill the enemy, try not to put yourself in danger. I still want to bring you all home." "General." The warrior's eyes welled up with tears as he pursed his lips. Zhao Yun had already leaped to the next battlefield. The warrior took a deep breath and pounced on the next enemy with a roar. "Die, you bastard!" On the other side of the battlefield, there was already a scene of devastation. There were collapsed mountains everywhere and cracks in the ground. Some of the mountains had even completely disappeared, leaving only bottomless pits where fiery red magma was spewing out. On one of the ruins, Lin Poyang was lying there weakly. His body was covered with wounds, and his left leg had disappeared. The biggest wound was on his chest, where there was a bowl-sized wound. His heart was empty and had completely disappeared. After suffering such a serious injury, Lin Poyang's strong vitality still kept him alive. He stared at Yi-chan in front of him unwillingly. Yi-chan stood tall and straight in front of him, looking down at him condescendingly. Yi-chan's eyes were cold. The sharp tip of the Godslayer's spear was pressed against Lin Poyang's forehead. As long as he exerted a little force, his head would be crushed. Yi-chan asked coldly, "What else do you have to say?" Lin Poyang smiled bitterly. "The winner takes all. I just don't want to give up. If you give me a few more years, I will be able to break through to the Saint Realm." Speaking of this, Lin Poyang's face gradually became ferocious. "At that time, I will lead the Netherworld army to the Eldritch continent with the strength of a saint. Who can stop me with the short-sighted trash of the Eldritch continent?" Yi-chan thought of the events of his previous life and looked at him with pity. "You think too much. Even if you are given a few more decades, you won't be able to break through. Invading the Eldritch continent is just an unrealistic dream of yours." Lin Poyang immediately said anxiously, "Nonsense. I have been at the peak of the Daluo Jinxian for many years, and my foundation is solid. Breaking through to the Saint Realm is just a matter of time." Yi-chan saw that his face was flushed and his breathing was rapid. It was obvious that he had reached the point of terminal lucidity. He sighed in his heart. Lin Poyang was an ambitious person, but unfortunately, he was born at the wrong time. Yi-chan told him the truth. "I didn't mean to discourage you. I'm just telling you the truth. There's a big problem with your cultivation method. Otherwise, with your cultivation, even if you were no match for me, you wouldn't have lost so thoroughly. I guess that someone has tampered with your cultivation method." You will never have the chance to break through to the saint realm in this life. Nonsense, that's impossible. Lin Poyang's face was red and his neck was thick. My cultivation method was personally taught by my master. He's an old man. Who can tamper with his cultivation method? Speaking of this, Lin Poyang suddenly froze. His expression was stiff. Finally, he smiled bitterly and said, I understand. I understand all the doubts of the past. Master, you have already foreseen all of this, right? Why do you have to do this? Master, you have misled me. Lin Poyang shouted 3 times, then vomited blood and died with his eyes wide open. After Yi Chun confirmed that Lin Poyang's soul was destroyed, he sighed in his heart. It seemed that at the last moment, Lin Poyang had realized who was plotting against him. He didn't expect Lin Poyang to fall in the hands of his master. At this moment, the power of destiny suddenly flew out of Lin Poyang's body and automatically flew into Yi Chen's body. Boom! There was a sudden clap of thunder in the sky. All the creatures in the heavens, including the Eldritch continent, heard the long-awaited world announcement at the same time. World announcement. Mutant Yi Chun has killed the son of destiny of another world and seized its power of destiny. He has killed demon venerable Yu Ming and completely quelled the netherworld demonic realm's conspiracy to invade the Eldritch world. He is specially rewarded with supreme merit points x 10 billion. Congratulations to him. Chapter 1503. The world was shocked when the announcement was made, not to mention that it was made 3 times in a row. Countless small worlds and all the living beings in the Eldritch world heard it. The human race players in the 3 Kingdoms world clenched their fists in excitement. It's Yi Chun. We haven't heard from him for so long. I thought he was in seclusion. I didn't expect him to go to the Nether Devil realm and cause such a big commotion. Haha, this is our god Yi Chun. He's always quiet and always amazes the world with a single brilliant feat. As for the demon race players, they said with some jealousy, it's Yi Chun again. He really likes to be in the limelight. Don't you know that there's a saying in the human race that goes like this? The citrus that sticks out rots first. Hee hee. I also know that there's a saying in the human race that goes like this. Watching him build a tall building, watching him collapse. I have news that Yi Chun has offended some powerful people. He's going to be in trouble soon. In a large human race city, a tall and mighty man was sitting in the city lord's mansion. After hearing the world announcement, he squinted his eyes slightly, and 2 cold rays of light flashed in his eyes. Ever since I entered the Eldritch world, news about Yi Chun has never stopped. Who the hell was he? He even killed the son of fate of another world. If there's a chance, I really want to meet him and see who is the son of heaven of the Eldritch world. In the ancient heavenly court, Dong Wang Tai and Di Jun frowned. Dong Wang Tai turned his head and asked, Is Yi Chun the human race brat who killed my general, Tao Wu? Among the 10 demon gods under him, an old man immediately stepped forward. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said in a low voice, Your Majesty, it's Yi Chun. We've been looking for him recently. We didn't expect him to go to the demonic realm. Where's the Nether Devil realm? At this time, Emperor Jun opened his eyes and said indifferently, I've heard about the Nether Devil realm. Thousands of years ago, there was a riot in a remote place. It was suspected that there were spies of the Devil tribe from the Nether Devil realm. At that time, several almighty figures acted at the same time and sealed off that area. After that, I originally wanted to trace the source and completely eradicate the Nether Devil world. Unfortunately, due to a free combination of factors, I was unable to do so. I never thought that this kid would actually succeed. A cold light flashed in Dong Wang Tai's eyes as he said, He's just an insignificant ant of the human race. We didn't pay much attention to him at first, but now that we've heard about him again and again, I'm more and more interested in him. As for Yi Chun, he didn't care about the system's announcement. What he cared about was that he had finally killed Lin Poyang, the son of destiny of the small world. Furthermore, when Lin Poyang's power of providence entered his body, Yichen clearly felt that his own power of providence had increased greatly. A cold light flashed in Yichen's hand as he directly cut off Lin Poyang's huge dragon head. Holding in his hand, he tore through the air and left. Lin Poyang had occupied the original body of the Nether Devil World's demon lord. Even his own body had turned into a huge dragon that was 100,000 feet long. The dragon head was even bigger than a towering mountain. When Yichen returned to the battlefield, the whole battlefield was still in full swing. Zhang Liao and Jia Su were leading the warriors of the two camps to frantically snipe the various Hellfire Dragon Kings that were trying to escape. Although the formation set up by Jia Su was very magical, after all, there were many of these Hellfire Dragon Kings. Their combined power was enough to destroy the world. Even with that huge formation, it still couldn't trap them. Fortunately, there were still tens of thousands of giant netherworld mantises besieging them. Now, there were still dozens of Hellfire Dragon Kings that were struggling at death's door. To be able to hold on until now, they were definitely the best of the best. Each of them was no weaker than He Sha and the Lava Dragon King. On the other side of the battlefield, Gao Shun was leading the other giant netherworld mantises to sweep the entire battlefield like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. Countless soldiers of the Nether Devil World were killed until their blood flowed like a river. Not a single one of them was left. It was worth mentioning that the Nether Devil World's army was indeed valiant. If it was the demon army of the primitive continent, they would have collapsed long ago. However, these Netherworld knights and the elite warriors of the various tribes were still fearless as they roared and charged forward. This also allowed Gao Shun to reduce the time needed to chase after them. He only needed to kill crazily. The attacks of these ordinary elite warriors couldn't even break the defense of these Netherworld mantises. Even if they were brave enough to charge forward, they would only be courting death. After Yi Chen appeared, he suddenly threw Lin Poyang's huge dragon head into the middle of the battlefield. At the same time, he suddenly opened his mouth. His voice was like thunder that enveloped the entire battlefield. Demon Lord Yu Ming has been killed by me. If you give up resisting, I can still spare your lives. The ordinary Netherworld army was stunned at first. Then, they started to charge even more crazily. Their intelligence was generally not high. Now, they only knew that their supreme ruler, Demon Lord Yu Ming, had been killed. Therefore, they wanted revenge and didn't hesitate to risk their lives. However, the reactions of the Dragon Kings of the various regions were different. Each of them stared at the huge dragon head on the ground in bewilderment. Lin Poyang's head couldn't be faked. There was still the unique aura of Demon Lord Yu Ming lingering on it. From the looks of it, the sky of the Nether Devil World was really going to change. Looking at the blood-red eyes around them, the Dragon Kings of the various regions looked at each other bitterly and threw away the weapons in their hands. In the void, they knelt in the direction of Yi Chen. Dozens of huge fire dragon kings that were riddled with scars crawled on the ground, expressing their submission. Yi Chen's eyes flickered with a cold light. The reaction of the scene was also within his expectations. He had a limited quota. Of course, he wouldn't waste his time on those ordinary trash of the Netherworld army. As for these fire dragon kings that could withstand the crazy attacks of the Death God cavalry for such a long time and still survive, they were still relatively strong and had potential. It was worth it for him to use a few quotas. Therefore, Yi Chen directly floated in the air. Without saying any nonsense, he held the contract book in his hand and turned these fire dragon kings into his most loyal contracted slaves one by one. After doing all this, Yi Chen casually swept his hand. Instantly, countless rays of light shot out from his hand and enveloped the bodies of these fire dragon kings. It seemed that the golden light contained an endless amount of life essence. The injuries of these fire dragon kings were rapidly healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yi Chen glanced at the remaining fire dragon kings. The number of remaining fire dragon kings was just the number of heaven stars. Previously, there was the Lava Fire Dragon King, Black Shark, and the other 18 Black Vajras. Now there were 36 heaven stars. Chapter 1504. Yi Chen's lips curled into a mischievous smile. He turned to He Sha and Lava Dragon King and said, "From now on, the 18 Black Vajras will be renamed as the 18 Iron Arhats." Lava Dragon King and He Sha were dumbfounded. How did they change from Black Vajras to Iron Arhats? However, they still knelt down in time and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Yi Chen waved his hand and ordered Lava Dragon King and He Sha to receive the 36 celestial spirits. As for Yi Chen's rules, there would be someone to teach them. Yi Chen did not need to be distracted. He looked up at the battlefield. Zhang Liao, who was free, did not stay idle. He quickly rushed down to join Gao Shun and continued to kill the army of the underworld. Although the army of the underworld did not collapse when Demon Venerable Yuming died, their masters, the Fire Dragon Kings, finally began to collapse after they surrendered. It was as if they were fleeing madly in all directions. Although Zhang Liao, Gao Shun, and Jia Su led the giant nether mantises and formed the Death God cavalry to chase after them, there were still countless soldiers of the underworld who managed to escape. However, Yi Chen did not have to worry about this day. Anyway, Guan Yu, Zhao Yun, and Zhang Fei led the army to sweep the entire underworld. Now that Demon Venerable Yuming was dead and the Fire Dragon Kings were either dead or surrendered, the entire underworld did not have any outstanding masters. Thus, they might as well train their troops. Under Yi Chen's orders, Li Yuanba, Sun Jian, and the rest led 5 million Samsara Legion soldiers to the underworld and joined the cleanup operation. As for Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Zhao Yun, and the rest, they sent the injured soldiers back to the Samsara dynasty to recuperate. Right now, Yi Chen had practically grasped the entire Nether Devil realm in his hands. He was not in a hurry to kill all the indigenous creatures of the underworld. Instead, he had a different idea. That was, he controlled the only passage in and out of the underworld. He could turn this place into the backyard of the Samsara dynasty, just like the Foggy Swamp. Moreover, this place could be the best place for the Samsara dynasty to train their troops. After being refined in the underworld, the strength of the soldiers of the Samsara dynasty would be doubled after they returned. In this way, the strength of the Samsara dynasty had undergone a tremendous change without anyone noticing. At this moment, Yi Chen was sitting in the Demon Venerable Palace in the underworld. It was the palace where Lin Poyang had been before. In the palace where Lin Poyang had been, there were countless top-grade fire spirits. The quality of the fire spirit crystals in Lin Poyang's possession was several times better than those collected by Yi Chen. After all, they were the accumulation of the entire underworld for tens of thousands of years. If they were not spiritual fire essences, they would not be kept in the palace. Yi Chen understood why Lin Poyang's cultivation improved so quickly. It turned out that he used these spiritual fire essences to practice. Now, Yi Chen had benefited from them. Yi Chen was sitting on the bronze throne with the 18 Iron Arhats and the 36 celestial spirits standing on his left and right sides. They all looked at Yi Chen submissively. After signing the contract book, they could not resist Yi Chen at all from the bottom of their hearts. Yi Chen did not treat them unfairly. He specially issued a decree to exempt their tribes from the danger of being wiped out. He even gave the tribes of the 36 celestial spirits and 18 Iron Arhats the opportunity to become the servants of the Samsara Legion. They could join the defense headquarters and assist the Samsara Legion in battle. This was simply the supreme glory of the 36 celestial spirits and 18 Iron Arhat clans. Yi Chen's majestic gaze swept across the two sides. No one dared to look him in the eye. Yi Chen said in a deep voice, "I'm sure you all know that I came to the underworld this time to find something that can increase the fertility of the Dragon, Phoenix, and Qilin clans. Have any of you heard of this clue?" The 18 Iron Arhats and 36 Vajras immediately frowned and thought hard. Finally, one of the Iron Arhats suddenly came out and knelt on one knee. He said sincerely, "Your Majesty, I've heard of some words. Legend has it that in the far west of the Nether Devil realm, there's a great canyon of flames. An unruly abyssal devil dragon hides there. That abyssal devil dragon is very powerful. It once set off countless bloody storms in our nether devil realm. Countless female fire dragons of the nether devil realm have been killed. Later, under the leadership of demon venerable Yu Ming and the power of countless fire dragon kings, the abyssal demon dragon was finally trapped in the Flame Canyon. That abyssal demon dragon was trapped in the Flame Canyon for thousands of years. Its abundant energy had nowhere to vent. Its essence gushed out from the bottom of the canyon. Over time, some rank 9 purple Ganoderma grew there. Those rank 9 purple Ganoderma have a magical effect. Just the smell it emits can revive some clans that have difficulty in reproduction. I think your majesty should be looking for it. Yi Chen's eyes lit up. Does the rank 9 purple Ganoderma really have such a magical effect? Your majesty, after hearing what he said, there's indeed such a legend in our underworld. That wine bottle Ganoderma should be able to solve the problems of the dragon, phoenix, and Qilin clans. That's right. Although we fire dragons are not of the same race as the dragon and phoenix clans, we share the same origin. We are all living creatures of heaven and earth after the creation of heaven and earth. We should be of the same origin and have the same effect. However, at this moment, a big man with long and narrow eyes knelt on the ground hesitantly and said, "Your Majesty, there's one more thing. It has been a long time since anyone dared to go to the Abyssal Demon Dragon's Canyon. No one knows if the Abyssal Demon Dragon is still alive. I heard that the Abyssal Demon Dragon already had the cultivation of a quasi-sage thousands of years ago. Moreover, it relied on its impenetrable scales and was very ferocious." This surprised Yi Chen. He did not expect that there would be a quasi-sage Abyssal Demon Dragon in the underworld. Then, even if it was not for the rank 9 purple Ganoderma, he would still have to go to the Flame Canyon in the far west. Yi Chen's character had always been straightforward. Moreover, there was nothing to prepare at all. Yi Chen immediately issued an order. He ordered Zhang Liao and Gao Shun to lead 2 battalions of Nether Mantises and the 18 Great Iron Arhats to the Flame Canyon in the far west to find the legendary Abyssal Demon Dragon. The group of people flew across the void at lightning speed. Yi Chen stood on the Lava Dragon King's head with his hands behind his back. His clothes fluttered and his eyes were deep. No one knew what he was thinking. Chapter 1505. Yi Chen's gaze swept across the underworld, which was emitting black gas everywhere. Many native tribes had been besieged and had no choice but to give up their original residence and hide in countless deep mountains and forests, struggling at death's door. Even so, it was difficult to avoid the search of the Samsara army. Yi Chen would not have the slightest pity for these natives of the underworld. Different races simply could not live in harmony. In the eyes of these natives of the underworld, ordinary humans were only edible delicacies. In this case, even if they were exterminated, Yi Chen would not blink an eye. Yi Chen's gaze pierced through the endless void and looked at the far west. If this time he could get his wish of obtaining the 9th grade purple Ganoderma, then he could successfully leave the underworld. In fact, Yi Chen's cultivation should have broken through long ago, but he had been suppressing it. His foundation was already incomparably solid and could no longer be suppressed. It was as if he was about to break through. Yi Chen decided that once he found the 9th grade purple Ganoderma, he would go back and seclude himself to break through. With such a solid foundation, success would come naturally. Overall, this trip to the underworld was quite fruitful. Without mentioning anything else, the 18 Iron Arhats and the 36 Celestial Spirits were all outstanding Daluo Jinxian level elite soldiers. When he brought them back to the wilderness, it would surely bring a powerful surprise to some people with ulterior motives. The far west was indeed very far. With Yi Chen's speed, they actually rushed for a day and a night before arriving at the far west. At this time, Heisha stepped forward and pointed at the place hundreds of miles away where the red light soared into the sky. He said, "Your Majesty, that is the Flame Canyon. That place spews out turbulent magma all year round. Legend has it that the damn guy is hiding in there. Yichen did not speak. In the blink of an eye, he arrived above the canyon, spewing out red flames. He could see that this canyon stretched for an unknown number of miles. Even its width was at least a few dozen kilometers. And within this canyon, countless red flames were constantly spewing out. The entire canyon was densely covered by these flames. Before they even got close, a wave of scorching heat attacked them. As expected of the Flame Canyon, it lives up to its name. Yichen ordered Zhang Liao and Gao Shun to lead a few battalions of soldiers and vigilantly patrol the vicinity. He himself led the 18 Iron Arhats and jumped into the Flame Canyon. A transparent energy shield appeared on Yichen's body, blocking the countless scorching flames outside. As for the 18 Iron Arhats, they felt incomparably comfortable. They were originally very close to fire. However, the temperature inside the canyon, the 18 Iron Arhats, they did not dare to be careless. Yichen opened his eyes that flickered with golden light. Nothing in the surroundings could escape his eyes. His fiery eyes of truth were not affected by these flames at all. After descending for about 1,000,000 feet, Yichen felt that he had finally reached the ground. Yichen raised his head and looked around. The bottom of the blazing Grand Canyon was also filled with flames and flaming boulders. There were even some bones that had not been completely burned not far from Yichen's feet. Yichen also sensed some extremely powerful energy on these bones. It was obvious that these bones had belonged to some relatively strong creatures when they had been alive. Unfortunately, they had all become a pile of withered bones now. Move separately. Everyone be careful. If anyone discovers the abyssal demon dragon's movements first, immediately send a message. Do not act rashly alone. Your subordinate obeys the sacred order. Following Yichen's order, the 18 Iron Arhats immediately turned into 18 streaks of light and rapidly explored the canyon. As for Yichen, he had his hands behind his back and was strolling leisurely. His speed was neither fast nor slow, but every step he took covered hundreds of thousands of feet. Yichen was not careless either. After all, it was said that there was an abyssal demon dragon at the safe-to-be level in the Flame Canyon. As Yichen went deeper, he sensed that the surrounding temperature was getting higher and higher. Yichen could feel that the surrounding temperature had already exceeded 1,000 degrees. It could even melt iron and stone. However, Yichen was wearing innate spiritual treasures, so he was not affected at all. Suddenly, Yichen's eyes lit up. He saw a few things flickering with red fluorescence thousands of feet ahead. Yichen's figure flashed, and he arrived in this area. He finally saw clearly that these were pieces of purple Ganoderma covered with colorful auspicious clouds. 9 layers of auspicious clouds have been accumulated on these purple scales. Was this the legendary 9th grade purple Ganoderma? Yichen waved his hand, and one of the 9th grade purple Ganoderma, together with 2 square meters of soil under its roots, floated up and slowly floated in front of Yichen. Yichen fanned it gently and immediately smelled a strange smell. Immediately, he felt that his heart was beating faster. However, he still managed to stabilize himself with his great willpower. Yichen's eyes lit up. His subordinates were right. The 9th grade purple Ganoderma had a miraculous effect in some aspects. Yichen scanned with his eyes of fire and gold. There were hundreds of 9th grade purple Ganoderma in this area. Yichen came for this item, so he did not hold back. Yichen waved his hand, and the 9th grade purple Ganoderma and the soil under their roots all flew up automatically and were collected by Yichen into the small world. In the small world, Yichen had already created a canyon that simulated the 9th grade purple Ganoderma's growth in a short time. In the canyon, other than covering countless purple Ganoderma, he also poured some lava into it. This time, the artificial canyon that Yichen made was 90% similar to the canyon in front of him. These 9th grade purple Ganoderma began to grow again in this canyon. As Yichen went deeper, there were more and more 9th grade purple Ganoderma in the canyon. In a short time, Yichen had already dug potholes in this area and dug up at least thousands of ninth-grade purple Ganoderma. Just as Yi-Chin dug up the last ninth-grade purple Ganoderma and sent it into the small world, suddenly, he felt the ground under his feet shake violently. Yi-Chin did not hesitate and flew into the air. At this moment, he turned his head and saw that the bottom of the canyon was shaking violently. There was a huge black monster rolling and gradually revealing its huge body. That huge body almost reached the clouds, and there was still a large part of the body left in the canyon. Yi-Chin saw clearly that this was a terrifying abyssal demon dragon covered in reverse scales. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.